Hello, this is saxophonist Antonio Parker, and this is A Conversation in Jazz, where we are promoting jazz through telling the stories. In this episode of A Conversation in Jazz, I have the distinct honor and pleasure of being interviewed by my good friend, trumpeter, jazz historian, and author, Mr. Munir Nasser. We ask you to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell icon so we can let you know when we are posting another video or going live. We also ask you to donate to our Cash App in order to support the channel and help us to produce future videos. Our Cash App is $Jazzology 101. That's $Jazzology 101. Enjoy the video.
Hello, I'm Munir Nasser, and this is A Conversation in Jazz.
Our guest today is a jazz saxophonist, educator, composer, arranger, producer, independent artist, and the author of the 17-book Language of Jazz series. He is a graduate of Howard University as well as the University of the District of Columbia. He has performed nationally and internationally and has the distinct honor of being a USIA Jazz Ambassador to 7 countries in Africa. He is being interviewed in this episode of A Conversation in Jazz by his longtime friend and colleague, trumpeter, jazz historian, and author, Mr. Munir Nasser. Please welcome Philadelphia native, saxophonist Antonio Parker. Thank you, man.
I get to sit in your seat today.
Yes. And it's funny because you were the first cat I interviewed for this show.
Yes.
So now you get to interview me.
Now, speaking of that, since you went there, what gave impetus to this platform?
As I said, man, we've known each other for, like you said, over 3 decades.
Yes.
Right. So, and most of what I know about jazz history and some jazz artists has come through talking to you over all these years.
Wow, thank you.
And I've always felt that you needed a platform, because I was like, hold on, people need to hear this knowledge that you have, this wealth or this breadth of history of jazz that you have. So I said, man, let me interview you, and I'm just so people can get an idea of who Munir Nasser is. Sometimes we, particularly in our generation, and we talk about this all the time, we get overlooked. And I think that's why they call us the X generation.
The unknown.
They want to X us out.
Yes.
And we've talked about this, man, sometimes being overlooked. We've had to kind of be each other's support systems over the years. And
yes.
You've been there for me. And I've been there for you, but I've always felt that you needed a platform and that maybe let me interview you so that people can really get an idea of who Munir Nasser is. And so it started out very just me trying to provide a platform for you. I didn't expect that I would continue doing this.
And I appreciate it. I want to thank you. But today is about Mr. Antonio Parker. So this is your platform, and I'm going to ask you the question you asked me and everybody else on your program. Who is Antonio Parker?
Wow. Who is Antonio Parker? Well, I'm still really learning a lot about myself, but I can tell you this. I've always been an independent thinker. I've always been I've always been off like, walk to the beat of my own drum.
Yes.
Always, ever since I can remember. And sometimes it was very painful because I always kind of felt this deep sense of not being included or being rejected. But it turned out to be, to me, the best thing because now when you begin to find who you are and you can walk in your own skin. Yes. And be self-validating. So Antonio Parker is just a person, man, that's trying to bring some sunshine to reality.
Yes.
You know, I was.
How many roles do you play? Because you wear a lot of different hats as Antonio Parker. Give us a sense of some of those roles.
Well, it's funny because I was just ready to say this, that I was playing the Wizard of Oz for my students. I'm a teacher. I'm an educator, and we were the witch Glinda, the good witch.
Yes.
When she came down to that ball, she asked, what's the lady name on the Wizard of Oz? Dorothy.
Yes.
She said, "Are you a good witch or a bad witch?"
Wow.
And I like to think that if I were a witch, I'm a good witch.
Right.
I think that deep inside, I'm genuinely just a good person. But I got that other side. I'm not one thing. I think we all got that, the yin and yang, the light and dark. There's I would say, militant side of Antonio. A lot of people see me smiling,
right,
and they see I'm like a kid. I've always maintained that kid in me. But coming up in the hood, you had to have that other side.
So let's go into that a little bit. Yeah, let's go back. Now, you're from Philly originally.
Yeah.
Right. Tell us a little bit about your family background. Do you come from a musical family?
Yeah.
How did this journey start for you?
Let me finish saying what I was saying. Don't leave me. Let me get it. Because I really want the people to know who I am.
Okay.
Coming up in the hood, you know, people could take kindness for weakness. People have a tendency to. I was a short cat, you know, so they're gonna try you.
Yes.
So I had to develop that other side, and that fighter side, and there's a side of Antonio Parker that that would be willing probably to die on his sword if I had to, meaning that I'm happy. I'm a lovable kind of cat. I love people. I have empathy for people and I care for people and that sort of thing. But then there's a side of me that I like justice.
Yes.
I like I follow what I believe is truth at the time, and that can grow. It can start from here and then go here. And I like to and when I see injustice or I see something that's just not right, whether it's coming from whoever, something in me just will stand up against that.
Yes. And
I had to learn being you have to balance those two sides of who you are.
Yes.
So I'm a father. I got two sons, Elijah and Josiah Parker. I'm a musician. I'm a educator. And as a musician, I'm still trying to figure this thing out, man. Right. So I wear these different hats.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, I'm just me.
Yes.
Next question.
So let's talk about your musical beginnings. Okay. How did you come to choose the alto saxophone? Is it your first instrument? Is it your only instrument? Tell us something about your musical background.
Yes. So when I was in the 5th grade, I remember my mother coming home, and I went to Catholic school, by the way. So my mother had to pay for school.
Wow.
And I went to St. Ignatius. Shout out to St. Ignatius. My mother came, and they were starting a music program, and so she came home, and she actually chose the saxophone for me.
Interesting.
And chose the trumpet for my brother. And I didn't know what a saxophone was. I just, okay. Because at the time I was really focusing on art, drawing, and that sort of thing. So she came home and said, okay, you're going to play saxophone. My brother Skip, you're going to play trumpet. And so, cool. Wow. And for some reason, it took about a couple of weeks for my horn to arrive. So I'm sitting in the band where everybody else got their instruments, they playing. And I'm like sitting there like, wow, And so I remember when my horn arrived, man, I pulled that thing out, had plastic. I could still remember the smell.
Right.
It was a con. And man, it was just an instant connection. And I knew that I wanted to do this.
Wow.
Yes.
Now, your methodology for learning, did you learn by ear? Was your first exposure through reading, music, and formal training?
Yeah.
How did your initial learning take place?
So my very first teacher was Mr. Randy Navarre, and so we started learning by reading. Mm-hmm. So I guess you could say that's formal. But we were learning in the band context. So we were all learning together.
Uh-huh.
I was able to pick up reading quickly. I was able to process it. But I was always the kind of cat that, because I had this passion for it, I went ahead and learned beyond what he was teaching us. So I was always kind of ahead of everybody else because I had a natural affinity for it.
Now, it's funny how I met you is related to reading, because Zay came down to...
Your brother Zay?
Yeah, Zay came to Howard University in '87, and he said, man, I heard this cat playing, and went through the practice room, I heard somebody playing Charlie Parker. And he said, I followed the sound to the room, and there was this cat in there reading the Omni book. And he wasn't missing nothing. He was reading, sight reading, and he was impressed by that. Yeah. And he came and told me about you. I met you.
This before we met.
This before we met. Zay met you first, and you were reading. And we were more ear-oriented in our development.
That was my, I think I was, that's when I came to visit Howard. I was in 12th grade. I had a teacher who paid for me to visit the university. She was an alumnus.
Name?
Miss Beverly Kelch. And,
shout out to Beverly.
And may she rest in eternal peace.
Wow.
Beautiful lady, man. She paid for me. And I did not know. I just kept, and so she I'll visit. So she paid for the hotel and everything, man. And so I think she paid for the train. I took the Amtrak down. And so when I got on campus, it was right around the time when John Malachi had passed. And they were doing a tribute.
The late great pianist, John Malachi, yeah.
And they were doing a tribute to him at Crampton. And I got to hear the Howard University Jazz Ensemble. And I heard this cat, Kevin Levi.
Kevin Levi.
Man, blew my mind, brother.
Ooh, yeah, he could play.
I mean, like, man.
Blew mine, too.
Yeah, Kevin was playing,
yeah,
boy.
He sure was.
And so I said, oh, Howard. I didn't know nothing about Howard.
Now, what about Charlie Parker? What was his role in inspiring you and influencing your development?
Now, so we got to go backtrack. So your brother heard me playing out the Omni book.
Yes.
The Charlie Parker Omni book.
Yes.
And that's a book of Charlie Parker solos. Okay. That book, and there was another book of solos that I had, the first book I got from Charlie Parker. It was a black book. It was a book of his solos. This is before the Omni book.
Wow.
So I was trying to learn how to play jazz. And we can get to how I got to jazz, but I was trying to learn how to improvise. And so because I was a reader, I say, let me go to the music store and find a book that can help me to learn how to improvise. So I saw this book with this cat. It had his picture on it with an alto, and we had the same last name, Parker.
Yes.
Charlie Parker. And it had songs like solos to Oop, Oop, Bop, Shabab. And so I bought the book, man, and I took that thing home, and I was reading through it, man, and it made me sound like I was playing some jazz. And so I was like, yo, this cat, I like these lines. They just, I felt them.
Right.
And then I went, at some point, because I became a fan right there. Uh-huh. Then I went to the record store to get a Charlie Parker album. My first Charlie Parker album, Bird at St. Nick's.
Masterpiece.
And it's an album that has low fidelity. Somebody was taping them at a gig or something. Yeah, bootleg. But bruh, I heard the cat play, man, and it just resonated. I mean, like his sound, his the sound, the spirit, and man, it would just not floor me.
Yes.
Man, I became a Charlie Parker fan for life. And so that was my connection with Bird, man. And it was great because I didn't know who he was. But see, then I read Bird Lives. And I started putting all this together and hearing the stories that Bird would come to the crib, came to somebody's house 2 or 3 in the morning, knocked on the door, and asked for a match, lit a cigarette, and turned around. And those stories, man, began to like wow. And of course, the story about
the story behind the music, like what we're doing here, is important because a lot of people, that seems to be lost on people now.
No doubt.
The story behind the music is not getting out.
Not just the story, the stories.
Stories, yes.
Behind the music, behind the artist, because that's what it's about, man. I mean,
So before we get to Howard University, we kind of skipped a little bit. Take us back to Philly. Take us to Kappa. You went to school with a lot of legendary artists.
Yeah.
But you had a legendary mentor, Lovett Hines. Do you want to discuss that somewhat?
Yeah. Well, even before I got to Kappa, I was at the Southern Music School. So my mother was paying me for me to have private saxophone and piano lessons. Me and my brother. Wow. And my brother had a class with Joey DeFrancesco.
Really?
Yeah, he told me that.
Isn't that something?
Yeah. And so we went to Southern Music School. Joey was going there too. Because Joey was, I guess his parents were
Was he a multi-instrumentalist even then? Or he was just
No,
playing
I think he was just on piano then.
Okay.
But I think his parents was trying to get him to study how to read music and that sort of thing. Because he was an ear cat. Yeah. And so, but at Settlement, every Saturday when I went to my lesson, I would hear this music coming from the basement. And man, I'm like, what the heck is this? So I would go down. After my lesson, man, and it was a young Joey DeFrancesco. He was about 10 years old, playing his butt off. Little guy.
Wow.
And I saw Robert Landon, Lewis Taylor, Leonard Richardson, all the cats that Kevin Otterbridge, Byron Landon, Lewis Taylor, all the cats that became good friends of mine, and who were a little old. Many of them were a little older. Joey was a couple of years younger, and then Lovett Hines, and man, so I was hearing this music, and it was like I would just come down and just stare at them and rehearse, and would be just blown away.
Wow.
And so I somehow, Settlement also had a summer camp. And so I was in the jazz summer camp. I remember going out for the jazz band. I didn't make it the first time. And I remember my first time trying to solo. We were playing something, but Mr. Hines pointed to me to solo, and I stood up, man. I was just playing. I ain't know nothing about playing and changes and all.
Wow.
And he said, man, you gotta learn how to play the changes, baby. Yeah, man. Wow. So, but I was around cats, young cats, that were serious about jazz, man. Around my age, maybe a few years older. Then I would eventually meet Christian McBride.
So what impact did that have on you, seeing these cats dedicated and serious about this art form?
Well, I think I may have been. Shoot, I was just as. I don't know, man. I was just doing. I didn't need nobody to. Joey had an impact on me because I was like, whoa, this cat was just phenomenal. And at 10, he was a product. And so. And then Lewis and Taylor, because I play saxophone, they both played saxophone. And then Christian McBride, these cats were...
And what year are we talking about approximately?
Now you know...
You graduated in 87.
But you good with them dates. So it had to be between...
84, 85,
yeah,
okay.
80,
around the mid-80s.
83, 84,
okay.
Before high school.
Yes.
And so I don't remember a lot of dates, man, because I remember certain dates. I know you remember them dates.
Yes, I do.
I'm one of them kind of cats, man. I'm always in forward motion. I forget what happened.
Right.
I remember some dates, but it was what would be my middle school years. Fifth grade, fifth and eighth grade. I graduated St. Nation, 8th grade, before I went to Kappa. So it's those
Okay.
3 years, between 5 and 8. And, man.
And then you
We had
started practice. How much did you practice at this time?
Well, at that time, I don't know. I practiced as much as I could. I loved it. It wasn't like even practice to me. You know, again, I was that kind of cat that would buy books or try to go ahead of the lesson. You know.
And then at some point you encountered Wynn Marsalis, right? He came to your
That came
school?
in high school. But before
Okay.
we got to high school, before I got to Kappa, man, there was a whole like settlement summer camp. And that was one of them great things in Philly, man, where, I mean, we would come, it's like a camp for music. You had an orchestra, you had a concert band, you had a jazz band. I mean, and it was like, and I met Chris. Chris eventually would come and be a part of it.
And this was the cream of the crop young musicians or
At the
anybody?
time,
It was open for anybody?
At the time, we didn't think of those. He was the cream of the. We didn't know. It were great musicians of all white cat. It was white, black. It was. We met at Girls High down in Alany. I would get on the train.
What part of Philly is this? North?
I guess what's that? I mean, West Oak. I don't know. Alany, man. West Oak Lane. I've been so far removed from Philly, but we would go to. It was a summer camp, and it was a program. And man, it was beautiful because we were bringing people like John Blake, the great, late John Blake, jazz violinist. Grover would come and do workshops, and at Settlement, man, we had the sextet. Then I would go to Kappa, Creative and Performing Arts in Philadelphia. That was just like, and our school was located in Center City, downtown Philadelphia.
Wow.
That was a great experience.
This is your high school?
This is high school.
Okay.
And that was a great experience. Now, I was a couple years ahead of Chris and Joey.
Okay.
So I went to Kappa first.
Oh, you wanted
And they came afterwards.
Okay.
So,
the originals.
So it was either Kappa, some people, I guess it was Kappa, or some people went to where Will Smith went on. What's that? I can't think of it. So I be getting that. I can't think of the name. Overbrook.
Okay.
But and at Overbrook they had the great Dr. Allen, who was.
Well, who
teaching
was
over
some of the people that you were at? I mean, you have a whole laundry list of prominent musicians that came out of, yourself included, that came out of Kappa.
Well, yeah, man. Well, you know, you got me. Well, we just lost Eddie Holman, man.
Oh,
my
man.
brother, man.
Eddie, yeah,
you
rest in peace. I met Eddie.
Yeah,
I talked
Eddie
to him a
Holman,
long
man.
time. Spent a
Eddie
lot of time.
Holman, man.
I met him once. We spent a whole day together.
Y'all, and you know what? Y'all both are historians. Eddie, man, I was trying to. I'm glad I interviewed him as well because he's another encyclopedia. And I was hoping that, man, one day he could either write a book or do some kind of video. This cat just had a wealth of knowledge, man, about the music industry and that sort of thing, man. And we just lost him.
Especially the sound of Philadelphia and all the recording
man.
engineers.
Holman,
he knew
and
everything.
Eddie
all
was
that
my big
detail
brother,
stuff.
man. Eddie was my big brother, man. But the people that we know, that's, of course, Christian McBride, Joey DeFrancesco, Boys the Men came from Kappa. Yeah, Questlove. It's the singer. He's lead singer of this group called As Yet, Mark Nelson. Man, it's just, and there's some people I don't even know that, because I graduated '87, but it came out of Kappa, man, creative and performing arts. And there's some people that, man, that haven't become famous or whatever, that just great talents, man. But the level of talent and dedication, man, coming up in a performing arts school, man, whether they were dancers, artists, some of these artists was like off the chain. Musicians, man, our choir, creative writers. We used to do plays, and we used to all come together.
Wow.
Man, it was a great experience, man. Kappa, shout out to Kappa.
Now, another aspect of your development that, to me, I didn't see with a lot of other musicians, you also had a fondness for Grover Washington and could play commercial. A lot of people that was in the jazz, they wouldn't come near that.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Grover,
and
man.
so you were, I admired your diversity and your openness. Yeah. You were into the bebop, into the jazz, but you weren't afraid to play in different genres.
When I go back into my early days, man, I love music. I remember when hip hop started. A dump, a book a dump, dump.
Rapper's Delight.
Yeah, Rapper's Delight. I remember that. I mean, I love music.
Right, right.
So music, whatever it was. When I heard Grover, man, Grover had the same impact on me that Charlie Parker had.
Wow.
And so those were my two. When you look at Antonio,
Right.
those are my two pillars. Charlie Parker, Grover Washington Jr. Okay? Because they played from a place that was deep, and you hear it in their sound. It's a deep
Wow.
in their sound, in their soul, and their spirit. And I was resonated with that. And then,
Right.
Before I could really ever play jazz, I always played from that. And like whatever that we can't I can't put it in words, but Grover and Bird was like, I say, he played like a voice that cried in the wilderness.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Train had that too.
Yes.
And I would eventually get to Train. But Grover, man, Grover changed the sound. They both were innovators as far as they both, like, to me, for contemporary music, I think Grover is the cat that, and you got David Sanborn in another way, but Grover was the cat for me.
And I played that music cheap because I thought if you could play jazz and straight ahead,
That you could play
anything.
Yeah,
and then you got me into the band with Keith Kilgo. And I remember, and we was at Tacoma State, and the place was packed. I'm gonna put myself out there a little bit. And these cats were playing, man. The crowd was screaming. And I took a solo, and you could hear a rat piss on cotton. Like nobody applauded. And I remember Keith, he leaned over the drum and said, "I like your playing." I could have crawled if there was a hole in the floor. I would have crawled out of Tacoma. But it taught me a big lesson. There's a learning curve to all these different genres.
Yeah. Speaking of Keith Kilgo, man, Keith Kilgo was my Art Blakey.
Wow.
That's the cat that first gave me a gig.
Wow.
Like in his
Yeah, he
band.
gave me my first work in this theater too.
I was able to
the
grow
DC area
and learn a lot. And he was very patient.
Yes.
And he had enough experience where, you listen. And that's what the young cats got to do, man. Listen. We listen to the older cats, and that's what I came up, man. I gave cats, they could be a couple years old.
Yeah,
we listened and gave them the respect.
Wow.
And asked questions.
But what is this trend now that nobody really needs to know? I don't get it. I mean, it's almost like when you look around now, people really feel like they could learn this music without knowing the history and where it comes from.
Well, I think that you can get theory and stuff all on the internet. But like you said, when you start getting stories, that adds another kind of thing to it. When you talk to people, I mean, and when I say when we listen coming up, listening to cats, man, it didn't matter if what they was playing like Clifford Brown or not. Bobby Sanchez.
Yeah, that's true.
We gave them respect.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was like, okay. And there's little things we can learn from him. We didn't say, he can't play.
Man, he said some stuff to Harold Mayburn that Harold Mayburn was shocked that he even knew. He mentioned Claire Rockamore, an obscure trumpet player from Detroit.
Wow.
That Lee Morgan and Clifford Brown all knew about this guy. He was ferocious. And he mentioned him to Harold Mayburn. Harold Mayburn was surprised. So, I mean, he was knowledgeable, man, and he gave us a chance to play.
Yes.
He gave a lot of cats a chance to play.
But we weren't arrogant.
Yeah, that's true.
We were, we came, we were humble, man, and I've always been that way, man. It was like, because, I would listen to cats. Matter of fact, I used to play on the street corner. You remember that?
Yeah, yeah.
And it was a cat. Sometimes I'd be playing, man. I played on the street corner for 10 years.
You hit me to that.
Yeah.
I remember one time we was at Howard and I was doing bad, man. And I said, man, I should go out on the street and play. And I just expressing the thought. So like a half an hour later, you came and knocked on the door with your horn.
Yeah.
And said, let's go.
Exactly.
And that's the first time I was playing on the street was with you in Georgetown.
Wow. I started that at Kappa.
Wow.
I was ninth grade.
That was good money too. I think I made about $50 or $60.
Man.
Shoot.
Imagine this.
I was happy.
Let me tell you something, man. I'm ninth grade. We decided, let's go. We went down the street and played on the corner, a group of us. and we made about $15 each.
Wow.
And at that time, man, that was a lot of money for a young cat.
Exactly.
I think I was, 11, 12,
Man,
13,
yes,
whatever.
Yes.
And so I went the following day by myself. And I raked in about $60, $50, $60, man.
Man, yeah.
I bought this. I'm like, man, I did that for 10 years.
And people don't realize that's a way to earn a living. You can earn a living like that all over the world, just
man,
playing, in
they done
different
took
countries.
it to another level. Now they got play alongs.
Yeah,
I would just go out there and play.
Wow.
I played my.
So what did that do for your playing? Did that help your playing any?
I guess. You don't know what it's doing for you. I just love. I love playing.
Right.
And I know I brought this up, man. I used to play out there, and sometimes it'd be people walking by, and you but it was this cat that was a street cat. And he said, and he would be like, Charlie Parker, Charlie Parker, y'all don't hear this, and this cat was listening, man. And he was, I guess he drank or whatever, but he looked like a street cat. And he was listening, man.
Yeah, you can't play those guys
And
cheap,
man, that gave me, that fortified me.
Wow.
I mean, he was like, Charlie Parker, and he telling the people walking past, black cat, had all the beard and the whole nine. And that's why I got appreciation for not taking anybody for granted. That you never know who is who. And the fact that this cat could appreciate what I was doing, it meant a lot to me at the time. It was really encouraging.
Right.
Now,
another man that had a big impact on you and I was Mr. Roy Hargrove, the late, great Roy Hargrove.
Oh, no doubt.
Because really, when I came to Howard, I was going to keep my music on the side and just, you know what I mean? I saw what the musicians, including my father.
You was an international businessman?
Yeah, I saw what they went through. And I'm like, if they that good, struggling like that, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Maybe I should, keep the music and do something else. But then we encountered, and Sheldon was telling me about Roy before I even met him, and then you had met him.
I met Roy in 1987. I can remember that date because that's the date I graduated. And I was in a thing called the All City Jazz Band. And Christian McBride and Joey DeFrancesco was in that, along with some other wonderful musicians. And so we were tight too. I mean, we had some, man. We had in that era, man. We had people that was really young people that was serious about music.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, like really.
Yeah.
And so we were, and having like a Christian McBride and a Joey DeFrancesco, that just said,
raised the bar.
Because they were exceptional.
Yes.
Anyway, so they had this, what we called in 87, the downbeat competitions in Chicago. Okay? And that was when you had bands from different places compete. And they'd be adjudicated and, whatever.
They brought their A game?
So, we all brought our A game. And I remember that because I remember at our performance, it was my turn to take a solo, and I got up and take my solo, and my horn broke apart.
Oh, come on, man.
in the middle
of your solo?
Yeah, man. I had to borrow somebody's horn.
So you had to stop? You had to stop completely stop playing?
No, I couldn't play no more, but I don't know. But I had to borrow somebody else's horn to continue to perform.
Man.
Anyway, so that was a funny moment. Anyway, that's where we first heard Roy Hargrove. Roy was with, I think, a band from Dallas,
Booker T.
The Performing Arts School.
Booker T. Washington, Performing Arts School.
He was from there. And man, when that cat started playing, it was like, he sounded like an old man. I said, whoa. That cat, he sound young, fiery, brassy.
Yes.
And I'm like, whoa. And man, that was just, it was just like, whoa. That's where I first, and then that summer, I met Roy in New York because he was selected, and I was selected for Philly for a thing called AXO, the NAACP award. It's called AXO, and I think he won from Dallas. And so at that year they was having it in New York, and I get to see him again.
Wow!
And we actually played on the street corner.
Oh,
wow!
Just a duet.
I think we had some musicians out there.
Oh, okay.
We had musicians. We got together and played out.
Did the audience form, or y'all just?
Man, it was an audience.
Okay.
I vividly remember us playing on the street corner. And we got connected. So that's where we met, and that's where our connection came from. So that's also where Christian McBride and Joey met Roy as well. And so, and then the following year, I would go to Howard. And then Roy, I think he was playing with Bobby Watson, Horizon, that band, and Horizon. And we knew Sheldon,
yes,
who was very close friends with Roy, because Sheldon was at Howard.
Yes.
And next thing you know, man, Roy put out that album Diamond in the Rough.
Yeah.
And man, turned the world on his head, on his ear.
True.
And when he would come to DC, he would come on campus. You know, and we had a lot of pretty ladies on campus back then, boy. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Shoot, everybody wanted to come on campus and at that, man, them girls was that.
Now, what about the Young Lions concert? How did that come about? Because then you assemble these same people to produce a concert at Howard.
Yeah, but even before we got to the Young Lions, man, we got a whole history. See, the Young Lions thing that I put on, that came towards like I think I was working on my master's. I already graduated. Or I was in my 12th or my senior year at Howard, I believe, 92. But before that, man, we can't skip over them experiences at Howard.
Right.
We're going to Blues Alley, checking out Wynton Marsalis.
Yeah. Oh man! And a lot of times we didn't have no money, and we didn't have ticket. Remember we went to see Freddie Hubbard like that.
Yeah.
And I saw Joe Sullivan, rest in peace, Joe. And I said, Joe, I got to get in here. I don't have no money. He ripped off a ticket.
Yeah.
And we went in there and we saw.
Who did we see at Howard? We got to see. I remember we saw we went down at the Baltimore. Was that Baltimore? Well, we saw.
Are you talking about Freddie Hubbard, Nancy
Freddie
Wilson?
Hubbard. No, that was at.
That was at Dakota Barron.
Yeah, but
it was Stanley Turrentine, Jimmy Smith, Nancy Wilson, and Freddie Hubbard all on the same program.
Yeah, but what was that organization where we saw
Left
Johnny
Bank.
Griffin?
You talking about
Johnny
Left
Griffin.
Bank Jazz Society.
Yeah.
That was in
I saw Freddie.
Baltimore.
Yeah.
Yeah, Johnny Griffin. They bought him an electric piano and the concert was delayed by 3 hours. He refused to play
so we
with
used to go together. We used to go with Howard, man. I mean, and that
we were piling the car. We were driving the snow and the rain just to play, man.
And so
we would risk life and limb to
So
go
when you
out
talk
and
about
play.
the Young Lions, there was a resurgent.
Yeah.
And you got to go back. I got to go back because I met Wynton Marsalis in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And Wynton was like the new star on the scene in jazz and classical.
Yes.
But when I met Wynton, I was already serious about jazz. So but even though he said he didn't think I was serious, but he was a voice for jazz, for this new thing called the Young Lions.
Right.
This resurgence, because he looked cool, he talked cool, he played cool, and he was able to articulate the music in such a way.
He was crucial. And there wasn't a lot of people playing, people playing jazz.
So he's got to be, when I say that Young Lions, I got to, and there was some other cats.
Yeah.
Because you're from New York.
Yes.
And so you got to see another, I'm in Philly. So there was OTB, Out of the Blue, Ralph Peterson.
But you know what? It wasn't that many, to be honest. It was Ricky Ford. There were people like John Faddis, of course. I saw him like and they stood out because they were young and there weren't that many of them. Mm-hmm. But Wynton had a certain charisma, and then he was playing classical and jazz, and he had a media push and a media
so these cats were
thrust
playing
under
like
him.
Charles Fambro.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely.
And so, but what I consider the Young Lions, it was like my generation,
right,
our generation.
Yes,
where we caught the bug.
Yes,
and I think it was taking place in different cities, or in places around the country and around the world.
Yes,
and Wynton was like a figurehead for us. He was a leader for us, And then Roy came and just, like you say, man, Roy made you want to play again.
Yeah,
like
because
I want to
pointed to the possibility that He was doing it.
Yeah, he brought a thing to that, man.
Yeah, it opened up a whole Pandora's box of possibilities.
And then, man, I heard this wonderful tenor player named Tim Warfield.
Tim Warfield.
So when you talk about the young line, I gotta get up into that.
And Tim was coming to rehearse right there in the practice rooms. That's the kind of environment we had.
Oh man,
you know,
man, Tim. When I first heard Tim Warfield, man, I was already blown.
Yeah, I know you was. Yeah, you was.
My mind was already blown by Kevin Levi.
I know.
Kevin used to have me crying, man.
Wow.
And then one day I go to Tacoma Station, and I hear this cat. Tim Warfield, oh my God, bruh.
So let's talk about that now, because fire can inspire or it could burn. Some people get jealous, some people get inspired. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What is the whole science and psychology of that?
Well, I was always that kind of person that could see the greatness in other people without feeling less than.
Right. Yeah.
You know, people are competitive, and I was competitive because we all want. You know, everybody, first law of nature, you know, self-preservation, whatever. But, man, you can't deny when you see, you when somebody playing.
Yes.
I know they get burned, but, man, that inspired me.
Right.
You know, plus Tim was so cool. Cats like Tim was so cool.
Now, is jazz still cool? Because I'm glad you said that. Because one of the alluring factors in the music for me was the coolness, the hipness of a Miles Davis or Freddie Hubbard, how they dress, how they talk. That would seem like it was a part of the culture. It's definitely in hip hop. It used to be in jazz. Jazz today, I got to be honest with you, my friend, it looks a little bit square, like some bankers,
they trying
corporate, suit wearing musicians.
They try to be cool.
Okay,
some of them try to be cool, but that's why you got to talk to the cats. Because jazz is about finding you and who you are, your voice. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I love this cat. I love this cat. But who's Antonio? I got to find my swag.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Speaking of the swag, let's talk about some of your international, initiatives, you know.
Man, I'm still on the Young Lion. Ask you a question about the Young Lion. Hold on. I want to get to that Young Lions concert you're talking about.
Okay.
So I just want to. I like to dig because these things were very important, and it need to be documented. Yeah. Because there was a lot. Courtney Pond, and there was a lot of cats. I was also a part of the Betty Carter's Jazz Ahead program.
That's right. Yeah.
In 1990.
Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it was in New York, and this was. She, Betty Carter was always about the young cat. I mean, I was there with Adonis Rose. Cyrus Chestnut, David Sanchez, all these bad cats. Brian Blade, Gregory Hutchison. I mean, it was just a bunch of bad cats, man. That this little young trumpet, Pevin Everett, Reuben Rogers, man. It was just like Melvin Bryant, tenor player. All these cats are like doing big things now. I felt like I was like out of place. I mean, I did my little thing, but what I loved was the hang.
Right.
The hang was beautiful, man. It was just we were all young, and we were all trying to, and Betty was cool, and so I got to just connect with these young people, man, and which is a beautiful
Now,
thing.
what's your one takeaway from what she taught? I mean, you were probably in several different sessions with her when she was talking about the music conceptually and so forth. What's the takeaway? One takeaway.
Well, for me?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Well, at the time, I was so nervous and self-conscious. If I could go back and do it again, I would just put it all on the table. Sometimes we being so self-conscious and just do you know. But the one takeaway I would say, man, was the fraternal. Like, even though I was like that, the cats, it was a fraternity. We hung out. We went out and ate together. You know what I'm saying? And that's part of the music. I think that's a piece I don't know if we got that today, where cats hang out. Yeah. Where cats, the fraternity.
The camaraderie. Yes.
Yeah, the camaraderie.
Yes.
So that was very special at that time, and yeah, because that was a moment in time that we all could share. And for me to see these guys go on to do great things. You talking about Brian Blake?
But the point is, Betty Carter provided a forum for them to develop. And she was an elder musician. She's a woman, a black woman, let's emphasize that took leadership to educate the next generation.
Well, I see where you're going.
That's important.
I see where you're going.
That's important.
She was proactive.
Yes.
She didn't wait for somebody to approve and say, she did something that she saw a need, and she did it. Because we all can criticize what's not happening in jazz, but sometimes you got to be proactive. You got to pass the thing on. If we're going to pass it to the next generation, you got to be proactive.
And to your point, she started the Bet-Car label when she couldn't get a record contract.
Wow.
She started her own label.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know and produced their own records.
What I learned about life, and I'm still going to talk about that Young Lions guys. What I learned about life is sometimes being rejected will bring some other stuff out of you. And I've experienced a lot of rejection in my life, and it made me a more determined person, because I realized at a certain point, people they're gonna look over me. They're gonna look past you for whatever reason, and that if it has to be, it's up to me.
Right.
And so, not sitting back waiting to be validated. I had to be self-validating, take a chance, not be afraid, go for it. So,
is that a tall order for us? Because a lot of our conditioning is the opposite of that. To be risk averse, not to believe in yourself, not to take a chance. How were you able to swim against that tide where most people are not willing to do that,
I think it goes back, for me personally, I only can speak for myself. At a very young age, I knew what I wanted to do. At the age of 10, I knew I was going to pursue. I had a direction. I had a purpose. So I was able to channel all my frustrations, all my pain through this thing called music. And no matter what nobody said, I believed in this. If nobody believed in me, I believed in it.
Right.
And music was like a navigating thing for me. And it just led me down this path, and I just followed it. I believed in it. And when you trust that, and you seen that, I did this, I was able to go to college, I was able to graduate, I was able to do travel, I was able just through following this thing. Because some people didn't believe in me. Some people didn't understand what I was doing.
Right.
My mother got me started, and she paid for me to have lessons, but she wasn't into jazz. So maybe there's certain things she couldn't, give me in that sense, because that wasn't not everybody in my generation. Everybody wasn't into jazz.
Yeah, a lot of people. Man, I had to leave our generation to get into
I had to
jazz.
step out and be an individual. The cats around the hood where I'm from, West Philly.
Forget it.
I mean, they weren't into jazz. That was something I got on the bus and went to the jazz camp. My brothers, I mean, they knew I was into it. And then when we were coming up, man, hip hop was just burgeoning.
Yes.
That was the thing. And I was into that too. But this jazz thing compelled me. You know what I'm saying? So I had to have an intrinsic kind of motivation to do this. And at the time I thought I was going to make it big playing jazz. 'Cause I didn't know the politics at the time.
Right.
I just knew this felt good.
Right.
And I'm going to follow this. You know what I'm saying? I didn't know jazz didn't make no money. Well, some people make money off it. Right. But I didn't know that jazz, it wasn't the popular music. I didn't know nothing about it. That wasn't my motivation.
Right.
Money and stuff wasn't my motivation. I wanted to learn how to play. I still want to learn how to play this thing.
Right.
Let me answer that before we go. So I started that Young Lions concert.
Okay.
I think 91, where I was the president of Fine Arts Student Council. I think it was my senior year at Howard. And so I had this idea of bringing these musicians that I knew. I had Alan Palmer.
Yeah.
Was playing like Bud Powell. Yeah, he used to fascinate me too. He was playing piano. I knew Christian McBride. Christian would come up, and we could talk about that when they used to come up when Roy and they came to Blues Alley, man. And they,
I don't know if I want to talk. That might be a little bit traumatic.
Was that Steven Scott?
About. Yeah.
Oh my God, Greggy Hutchinson. So I said, let me get. I knew McBride. I had his number. I developed a relationship with Roy, so I knew these cats. I knew all of them. Roy Hargrove. Aaron Walker was at Howard on the drum, and then Robert Landon was the cat when I first was going to Settlement down there with Joey. He was playing one of the saxophone players.
Wow.
Tim Warfield, okay, I met we became good friends. I mean, he was one of my heroes, man. When he was playing at Tacoma Station, and of course Roy Hargrove. So I put this thing on, and in my mind, I just said, well, let me. And these cats didn't know each other at the time. I think Roy and Chris McBride knew each other, but Tim didn't know Christian. He didn't know Roy. And so they
sound like a working band.
Yeah,
that was,
so
that worked out. I remember that.
And from what I understand, that concert might have spurned the Futures.
Jazz Futures?
Jazz Futures.
Wow.
But that's what I was told. But I was just man saying what.
And then that's your effort to diversify too, because that's not playing. Organizing a concert.
It wasn't
not playing.
I was just trying something. It wasn't an effort. It was like, okay, let me see. I was just trying something crazy. Let me. I know these cats. I had a little budget. We had a little.
But like you said, we have to do a lot more initiatives like this. Take the initiative to do things like this instead of waiting to be discovered and waiting for people.
Yeah.
And some people are discovered.
I was the president of Fine Arts Student Council. We had a little budget.
Right.
And we wanted to do a fine arts program or whatever for the week, whatever. And I was able to make that happen.
And you know what else is cool about it? You documented it. It's available
it's
on
on
YouTube as we speak. You can actually see this concert.
Yeah, and the significant thing about that for me, the takeaway from that, is that I was, for the first time, was able to see that I had something in my brain, in my mind, and was able to bring it to existence, to see it. It started as a thought and as an idea, and I was able to manifest it. That's when I started believing that, my thoughts are real. My ideas are real. I can do this. That's why I said, I did it. And when you start getting enough of those, I did it, that sense of self-validation grows.
Wow.
Nobody can tell me what I can't do.
Yes, a healthy attitude.
Yeah, no doubt, man. So yeah, man. So that's and that of course I've done some other things since then.
Yeah. Now you always been a composer from the time I knew you writing lyrics, writing songs, writing. Talk some more about your composing and activities along those lines.
Well, the idea of composing started in high school because my boy Donald Ward, who at Kappa, was saxophone player. Yeah, he was in this. We had a production at our school called Dreams, and he wrote the theme song for it. Man, I'm like he got wow. And so he said he wrote, and I'm like, wow, he wrote something. I'm gonna write something. And he wrote this do do da 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 do da 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 dwee da 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 dwee da 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 da. So I still remember that he wrote that, and I said, man, I gotta write something because we were competitive. And I wrote this thing called boom boom bibbidi boom bim bim boom boom bibbidi boom boom boo doo or ba dwee doo dip dwee ba doo doo dwee. So I wrote my little something, and so I got the bug right there.
Okay.
And I carried that when I went to Howard.
How was that tune received when you presented it?
Oh man, we did that school. They loved it.
Okay, good.
But I ain't gonna let him write all the tunes.
All right.
Shit,
so healthy competition is good.
Yeah, we were. Yeah, we're still competitive to this day.
Wow.
Me and Dad, that's my boy. But so when I got to Howard, you know, I just continued that, man.
And you wrote for the band. You wrote. Talk a little bit about Fred Irby and the Howard University Jazz Band.
Yeah, man. I was in when I was there. We had two bands, the A band and the B band. For the most part, I was in the A band, and I wrote a song for the band called. I didn't arrange it, but I wrote. I had a tune called "Look at Me."
Look at me. Yeah, I remember.
And
Backstabbers.
Oh yeah, I did. We did Backstabbers, but that was a small group. Yeah, Backstabbers was a small group thing that we recorded.
Okay.
But
it was on that one of the albums.
It was on
right?
the I think '90s album, and then Look at Me. Chris
Royal.
Chris Royal did the arrangement on that.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I got the being at the jazz ensemble, man, was just, the Howard University Jazz Ensemble was just, man, great for me. It was the first time I got to record, period. Like to hear myself on a record. And I remember our first year recording, I took my record back to, because Christian was still at Kappa. So I showed him, yo, man, I'm on the album. And it was a big thing back then to be on the record.
Yeah, definitely.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, everybody recording now, but back then.
Right.
And so I got to record, go in the studio. I got to travel with the band.
Did you solo on that album?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
He gave me a little something.
Okay.
But one of the greatest things is playing second next to Kevin Levi. Kevin was a great big brother. Had a big sound. He knew how to. He just and people respected him. Just his presence and just he was something I was chasing because he used to have me crying. And so that was great, man, just to have a cat like that. And as a leader. Right. He was like a big brother as well. And so I learned, how to, that lead alto sound.
Did you leave the country for the first time with the jazz ensemble?
Yes. I think we went to Martinique.
Okay.
That's the first time I left. That might have been the first time I left the country. We went to Martinique, France.
Okay.
That was my first time with the Howard University Jazz Ensemble. We also went to Albuquerque, but that's New Mexico. That's part of the U.S. But yeah, man, they went to Africa prior to me coming.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I heard about that
one,
trip.
But yeah, man. So,
but you eventually did make it to Africa.
Yes, I did.
Would you like to talk about that now?
Yes, why not?
The Jazz Ambassadors program.
Well, around 1996. Mr. Irby, got that through Mr. Irby. The USIA, United States Information Agency. They were looking for somebody had canceled or something. They needed a duo to go over to Africa to do one of those educational kind of tours, jazz diplomat, whatever. And so I got Vince Evans. We made a little tape, and turned it in, and we got the slot. And man, we went to 7 countries in Africa. We went to Nigeria, Ghana, Togo, Zaire, Morocco, Tunisia, and the Congo.
Wow.
And it was just unbelievable. I mean, and you gotta understand, I'm in my black power, so, all that. So I'm going to Africa?
Right.
Come on, man. What? I'm going to, man, it was just unbelievable, man. When I went to Africa, I have to say, man, it was the first time I felt human in the sense of, in America, coming up, even in the hood, people going to look at you. You're dark, my dark skin, or you're short, and whatever. And you always had to overcome people's perception or their misperception. And when I got to Africa, man, it was just easy to talk to the women. It was just easy. It was like people, they showed you love, man. It was like, somebody came and put a bracelet with my name just on my arm. Because people can feel your energy. And like I say, man, I like to see that. I think that I bring love, peace, and humanity to wherever I go. And people can feel that. And they gave me an African name, Ayobami. And so, but I felt for the first time like, wow.
Now, you've taught on 2 continents. What's the difference between the students in Africa and the students that you teach here in America? If there is a difference.
Well, we take a lot for granted here.
Okay.
That's what another thing. Because at the time, I don't know what the climate is like in different countries in Africa now. But back then, man, they were thirsty for information. Now, if we say you can hear if we were speaking, you can hear, like you said, a fly piss on cotton. You understand what I'm saying?
Right. Yes.
They wanted to learn, and I find that with some students international students from other countries that I've taught. I remember I had a student from Iraq, and he was, Mr. Parker, so you say a whole note gets 4 beats, right? And so what is this with that's a half? I mean, just they love learning, you know. And you get that with students here too.
Right.
But for the most part, and I've taught pretty much in the hood.
How many years, by the way? How many years you been teaching?
I'm on 26 up there. And I find that sometimes when you give people stuff, and this is why giving people stuff can be dangerous, because they take it for granted. It's free. You know, like the kids that I teach, have taught, a lot of times, man, it's been very challenging. And to think that at one time it was against the law for us to learn how to read and write.
Yes.
To see many of our young people, the attitudes towards education and the lack of discipline and it's really sad. Nobody talks. I mean, I guess some people talk about it, but it's a lot of work to be done. You know what I'm saying?
So, what was your main takeaway when you left that tour? What impression did you leave with?
From Africa?
Yes.
That I began to see all the opportunities we had being Americans, and I did my first album afterwards. I began to see that, man, whoa, we got freedom. Because when I was in Nigeria, man, I was politically minded because I was into the blackity black thing back then.
Right.
And so I was in Nigeria trying to tell them, yeah, we're going to make, thinking, the Pan-African, and the cat, they were afraid to speak against whatever the government was at the time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I said, wow, okay. But I didn't care at the time. I was speaking my truth. But when I got back, and once you travel sometime, when you're out the country, man, sometimes it's good. It's like they say, no place like home.
Right.
You'd be glad to get back,
Yes.
To which you're familiar with. So I began to appreciate the opportunities that we take for granted, being Americans, and more and more I'm appreciating that, especially freedom.
Right.
And I think we should always fight, because your freedom can be taken away. When you got, now we're in this cancel culture and all this, man.
Yes.
When people will unfriend you for having different ideas and views, man. So,
but this is supposed to be the information age, where now we can engage, and I think it's ridiculous. They talking about taking books out of the library. There's something called a smartphone, stupid. You can't hide information anymore.
Yeah.
If you take those books out, they can go on the smartphone and find an answer to basically any question almost.
Yeah.
Or at least the beginnings of the answer.
Information can make you arrogant. Make you think you know everything.
Yeah, that's true.
So we always have to have a sense of humility. That's why I like to hear opposing views. My views have changed over the years.
But that's one thing about traveling, too. You can't go into another country arrogant
Yeah.
and a know-it-all.
Oh, no, heck no.
Or you may not leave the country
Exactly.
alive if
Exactly.
you do.
So
that's another great lesson that comes with travel, too.
Yeah.
is
So
humility.
I've had just to be humble, man, and I heard something Muhammad Ali said. A man who thinks the same way 50 thinks that 20 is wasted
30 years.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, and so, man, it's about constant growth, man. As I grow, I look at reality, and I'm saying, wow. So I'm at a place right now, man, where I'm like, I just want to be able to maintain the ability to be free, to build these, like, I'm from the hood, single mother, right?
Right.
And I can look back and say, man, and I was one of those cats, man, that would be hard on the country, America, because what they did to my ancestors.
Right.
An angry black man. They, and I get that. There's room for that. But then you got to appreciate, well, hey, my ancestors didn't have the opportunities that I had today. So, what I want to do is, how can we take advantage of, it's not perfect.
Right.
But we're striving to make a more perfect union.
Yes.
So how can we take what we have? Because it ain't fair. Remember I told you about what Mr. Irby told me?
Yes.
All men are not created equal. Life ain't fair. I told my son the other day, man, he didn't get separate. He wanted to go into something about being black. I said, bro, I told him this. I said, look, there's gonna be times where might have advantages. There'll be advantages for you being black.
Right.
And I said, if you don't get mad when you get the advantages for being black, don't get mad when there are disadvantages for being black.
Right.
But
the only thing I ask everybody in this whole question of racism and white supremacy and the system's blocking me and I can't get through, what have you done personally that a white man or any other man stopped and said, you can't do that? If you can't give me an example from your personal life, that conversation is over with me.
Yeah.
If you can't show me where the system blocked, you were writing a book, you tried to pull out a record and somebody stepped and said, you can't do it.
Yeah.
If you don't have one of those, the conversation's over.
And
even if you do, people were able to transcend those no's too.
Madam C.J. Walker, come on.
Exactly.
Yeah, you
could go on everybody. Just say everybody that became something of substance had to overcome some kind of external or internal obstacle or barrier.
Yeah, and so life is not fair. I say in the jungle, and life is like a jungle. You have some animals that have canine teeth and claws. You got some animals that have buck teeth and hooves. And the animals with all the advantages get to eat the animals with the disadvantage.
Wow. Yeah, that's true. Wow.
You understand what I'm saying?
But I saw one case where this big fat frog swallowed this little tiny frog like this. And I said, how rude of that frog. I know he's bigger and badder, but come on, man.
Yeah.
That little frog was just minding his business, and he just ate it. And then 5 seconds later, that mouth opened up, and that little frog walked out. He was poisonous. That bullfrog died right where he ate it.
Ooh.
And the mouth opened up. He crawled right back out and went right about his business.
See there?
Never underestimate the small.
Everybody got some. What that tells you too is everybody got some strengths. Everybody got some unique qualities that gives them an advantage.
Yes.
That's when Mr. Irby told me all men are not created equal. What that did was help me to focus on, well, what do I have? What unique qualities do I have that gives me the competitive advantage?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, I may not be tall. I may not be light-skinned. I may not be whatever. I may not have the complexion of connection. But I do got a personality.
But even with that issue, I tell people, look at Brazil. Brazil has a big light-skinned, dark-skinned color problem. But the most popular Brazilian in the history of Brazil looks like the inside of a chimney. His name was Pele. He just died. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He's black as the inside of the chimney. He's the most popular Brazilian in the history of that whole country.
Yeah, because you're not.
So where does that debate go?
Well,
who won?
At the end of the day.
Who won?
At the end of the day, you're not who you think this external thing. Who you are is the thing. Who you are and who I am is the thing within that makes me be able to. It's good. Sometimes having obstacles make you stronger. Makes you give you an edge.
Right.
You know, there's great white people, great black people, great Chinese people. There's great Latino people. There's great dark-skinned people. There's great light-skinned people.
Right.
There's great all the above. No excuses.
Yeah, that's true.
Great tall people, great short people, great.
But with all this technology and knowledge, and why haven't we been able to transcend this kindergarten mentality that pays attention to color? That's crayons.
Because
that's
people,
what kids do.
Because
in
people
kindergarten
are more focused on how they feel than what they know. You know what I'm saying? People focus on that. Some people operate out of a paradigm of how they feel. You know what I'm saying? And that knowledge, see, we think knowledge is always, people can know better and still do worse.
Right.
You know what I mean? Knowledge don't necessarily make you mean that you're going to somehow apply it.
Well, something we always talked about. Let's talk about this. The music is one thing, and this is my position. There's never been a shortage of great African-American musicians. But we end up giving the music away to the same people we say are dominating us, are exploiting us. We gave the music to them. We don't own the masters. Even Prince, the hip-hoppers, they were walking in with Uzis and demanding their masters back because they understood this was a resource that would pay them into the future. You're talking about passive income.
Yeah, I think that
intellectual property.
I think that goes back to a lot of times as a group of people, we're still looking to be validated. So getting a Grammy means what?
You're somebody.
Yeah, exactly. So if I didn't get a Grammy,
you ain't nobody. You ain't nobody.
Exactly. If I didn't get an Oscar, you know what I'm saying? And that's why I think it's important that we get into self-validating. A conversations in jazz. I didn't get permission. I just did. We just did it. Hey man, you know, nobody. And that's what freedom is. We always talk about freedom, and freedom costs.
Yeah.
You have to pay for freedom.
Yeah, that's true.
See, people talk about freedom,
Yeah.
you know, but they don't want to invest. And freedom takes money and resources.
Yeah, it does. And that's what King realized, because the Montgomery bus boycott, they leveraged their economic buying power to say, hey, we're not going to spend money on a bus where we can't choose
But we
our
ultimately
seats.
end up giving away. We used to have black businesses. In our community, we used to. I think we've gone backwards since the civil rights. Individuals have prospered. You get a black president. You get a woman of color vice president. You get individuals who might have achieved. But when I look at the moral climate, because I'm a teacher, so I work in the hood.
Right.
When I look at the moral fabric, because I don't recall when I was coming up, we said bad words and cussed, but we didn't say that in front of adults.
Right.
I don't know if my mother ever heard me curse. She might hear it on here, but but I don't know if she. You know what I'm saying? But today, man, the kids cuss in front of you like.
And respect doesn't go out of style. Come on.
Yeah.
I mean, I know times change, but oxygen still works, and the sun is still the sun.
Exactly.
It's the same sun it's been for the billions of years.
And man, you have conversations talking about family and our idea of what we thought family was supposed to be.
Yes.
That it's not. That we have to come to the realization that it's not what we thought it was.
Yes.
And so, I don't know, man. If people looking at the condition that we are, the murder, the killing that we're doing to each other, the level of people incarcerated,
right?
The level of education, what we're producing. I don't think this is. Can you compare this to the Dr. Martin Luther King's and all the great that we produced?
Right.
I don't know, man. And so we used to have the Negro Leagues, you know, supermarkets. We used to own businesses in the community. Well, so have we progressed? I don't know. That's a question. It's a good question for us to. I mean, what they got to do with jazz?
Right. No. It's all related because it's all the same. Jazz has to exist in this kind of system with all these different influences and things happening.
Yeah, man.
And getting back to jazz, when we were coming up, the time we were talking about jazz has a buzz. It was on the radio. And I just came back from the GEN conference, Jazz Education Network conference, in Orlando. They had more jazz on the radio than they have in the nation's capital. We have 2 jazz festivals here, okay? I don't think they have one in Orlando, but they have a 24-hour radio station. Man, that's very important. That's advertising that expose people to the music that haven't heard it.
Well,
we used to have one. What happened?
I'm gonna take you back to the Young Lions, that era. Come on, it was when we had 24 hours. Philly had 24-hour jazz stations. DC had 2 jazz stations. I mean, what happened? We had the Mo Better Blues was coming out during that time. So jazz was like this upswing.
Yes.
The girls were coming out and they were
Yes.
into the music. The girls at Howard, at least.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? They had jazz on the Grammys.
The BET, Bet on Jazz, it was on
BET,
TV
Bet on
now.
Jazz.
They had the club downtown.
And what happened? But see, what happened is, this is my theory. So it may not be true, but this is what I see. Somewhere along the 90s, they saw that we could use gangster culture to push a narrative. Because I believe personally they want to destroy the fabric of our country from within. And I don't want to get too political, but the first thing you do is use the culture to create low frequency music. I mean, the music. I mean, the stuff that they saying in this music, man, it's having a negative impact on the children. I got students that do this to me, and they'll do this like they're in some kind of gang, because they got this gangster culture.
Right.
Has been sold to them.
But that's at the same time they had the crime bill, 3 strikes you out, and then they have a music that if you operate under its influence will take you right to prison or to the graveyard.
And so, remember when they started cutting jazz programs, cutting jazz stations?
Yes.
They were cutting the jazz labels.
They dropped the
they
whole
dropped
Warner
Wynton
Brothers
Marsalis.
dropped everybody. Warner Brothers
Columbia
dropped
dropped Wynton Marsalis.
They certainly did.
Come on. We was losing our jazz stations.
Yeah.
So, guess what? So they said...
Then the Clear Channel Act passed, so they were consolidating radio stations.
Exactly.
It was all in the 90s. This is all around the same time you're talking about. All these things were happening.
Come on, man. And the hip-hop, I remember you had it for self-destruction.
Oh, man.
I remember
or Fight the Power.
Fight the Power.
But then PBS just produced a documentary, That Is the Power. So the power they was fighting is the power that, presented hip-hop 50 years anniversary of hip-hop.
So we gave it away. Like you said, we gave it away, and they used it to denigrate. I'm searching for a better word, but this low frequency, man, to create this low frequency, and it's having an impact on youth. I'm a teacher.
Yes.
I teach elementary school for the most part. I've taught every grade level, but I see it. Nobody talks about it. But Black Lives Matter, they'll go out and do that when that happens, but what about that? And that's all I'm saying.
And Robert Smith now is investing in a music program through Carnegie Hall because he realized music influences our cognitive development. Music will develop you on a number of humane levels that people overlook. It's not just about playing gigs and concerts. It's about being creative. It's about being focused and disciplined. And you can apply that to anything.
And you notice, you don't see no young jazz. And I talked to the heads of many organizations. I said, man, we need to get some of these young African-American kids to some of these festivals, jazz festivals that happen in our area.
Yeah,
because they got to be exposed. We got to figure out a way to get them there. Or else, all they're going to be getting is the stuff they've been getting.
Right.
And they're going to be doing this.
Right.
You know
and another thing we talked about, because I came in 88, and one of the first stories I heard was about a concert at Crampton where Freddie Hubbard and Lee Morgan had another night of the Cookers cutting contest. And I heard people talk about it for years, but you were the only one that had the temerity to go up to Freddie Hubbard 2001, 30 years after it happened, and said, man, what happened with you and Lee Morgan at Crampton? He said, Lee Morgan got me that night. He didn't scratch his head. Yeah. He didn't act like he didn't remember. And so, like, history like that, to corroborate it while the people are alive, we're losing a lot of history. I mean, I did my effort to write my father's book, which contains a lot of rare history, but here's the key. The jazz world is pretty much ignoring it. And I don't see how they're doing it because this is not history that's well known. This is a lot of history revealed for the first time. Like Phineas Newborn's story about Oscar Denard. And I don't see the interest. It's kind of disturbing because there's not that many books out there.
I would say this, continue to push on, man, because, was that Frederick Douglass said power can see, I don't know, I'm saying a quote.
Can see nothing without demand.
Yeah, so if in order for you to, I don't know where I'm going with this, but just keep on. You have to fight. You have to push. You're going to be rejected before you accept it.
Right.
You know, my motivation for doing stuff is not always money, or I mean, everybody wants to be accepted. Everybody wants to make money, but if I believe in something, that means I'm doing it because I believe in it. You know what I'm saying?
But you got to admit, it did sound kind of ridiculous to people when we were coming up for you to say you were going to dedicate your life to pursuing music, and particularly jazz. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That wasn't a popular thing. You would go home and your parents and your family would be like, yeah, go for it.
Honestly, man, I didn't know any better.
Right.
I didn't know. My mom, one thing I love about my mom, she allowed me to follow my own road. She never said, you need to do this.
Right.
I just did what I felt. This internal thing that we got is our guide down here. Most people are looking outside themselves, you know, whether going to church and them telling you, and they following people and I get that too. I've always followed my intuition, this internal thing, that was like God talking to me. I didn't know where this thing would lead, but look, man, I didn't know at 10 years old that I would, you know, play at the pyramids in Egypt with the Smithsonian Jazz Masterworks Orchestra. I didn't know I'd be in a rehearsal with Prince.
Wow.
I couldn't foresee all this. Man. There's a spiritual component to this thing too.
Now, what was that like, rehearsing with Prince? If you could just give us a little insight into that, if you will. Because not a lot of people have had that opportunity to rehearse with Prince.
To be honest with you, I wasn't a Prince fan.
Okay.
Until that happened.
Wow.
And it was like, that's high level. That's the creme de
What was the vibe in there like? I mean,
Prince was cool, man.
Okay.
But it was, I think because it felt like everybody was walking on eggshells.
Wow.
I felt, because he has high expectation. You know.
He's a perfectionist?
I would say so. Wow. He wants it right, but and I might as well share. So we was rehearsing, man, and we playing. You know, we were playing horn part, but he pointed to me to solo, and I'm like, I was so nervous. I'm trying to find the key. I embarrassed myself because I'm like, wow, man. I think I went back to the hotel and cried, man.
Wow.
You know, but that's part of my story.
Man.
Yeah, you know. Hey, man, I bombed. That's nothing, man. When we deal with this music, man, we go. We have some painful experiences,
man.
man.
Lord have mercy. And it's like
I remember playing a song and getting lost on my recital.
Wow.
And not knowing why I'm trying to play a doo-doo-doo-doo lead.
Straight Street. Yeah, that's a rough song.
Oh my God.
Wow. So what's the psychology of that? Because a lot of people I've seen have given up, or if they try, it's really hard to stick to.
Nothing venture, nothing gain, man.
Especially music.
I think it goes back to your motivation. Why are you doing this? I'm not doing this. I didn't get into this because of money, or because it made me feel good. And not only, but it also helped me as a person. It helped me when I was at college, when I was at Howard, I practiced 5 or 6 hours a day. So I learned it was a level of discipline just going through this process.
Now, what about the whole concept of taking advantage of your youth, you know? Because once you had a family and children and stuff like that and had to work, you don't really have that same amount of time. It's like a lot of
You don't need that time. That's why you take advantage when you're youth.
Right.
But once you know what to do, it don't take 4 or 5 hours a day. You can focus on something specifically for 1 hour a day. Consistency is more important than the time that being consistent. Because let's say I was wanting to work on my scales, you know, and I said, okay, for the next 3 months, every day for 1 hour, I'm gonna learn all my scales. I'm gonna play them in different tempos and, you know, different keys and whatever. You're gonna see yourself grow in those 3 months because you're consistent. Wow. You understand what I'm saying? So as you get older, you get wisdom. You don't have to practice 100 hours a day. You just need to focus on what do I need to focus on? And let me just target that and develop. And then once you get that, then you say, okay, I need to and that's how it is now.
Now, given the backdrop of what you just said, in the music that you hear today, what is missing, you think? What can be improved? Because I know when we were coming up, you had to swing. You had to lock in that pocket.
You talking about in terms of jazz?
In terms of jazz. I hear a lot of loose meter. Duke Ellington said, it don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing. Swing is a feeling. We're not talking about notes. We're talking about how the music makes you feel. Because that's what brought you in. That's what brought me in.
Well, there you go into a subjective thing. Because music, again, what you like and what I like is subjective. Why I like it, I can hear some of today's music. You know what I'm saying? It's different, but I can appreciate it.
Okay.
So it's not like, I think we get into a comparison, contrast, we want to compare.
No, but we get into this thing that people are not listening and jazz is not popular. And it's like, are we trying to make the music listenable and appealing to the people?
Well, I think that's what they're doing.
To bring them in.
I think they're actually doing that. They put this backbeat on everything.
Okay.
They're trying to make it more accessible to. See, you know a time when them cats was like, the bar, they was in there like George Coleman and Clifford Jordan.
Swinging, baby.
And they was swinging.
Oh, yes.
And the songs, you let me hear some Woody Shaw, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
And they had but they coming from another thing. And I love it. And, but
look, we still got a heartbeat. Our heartbeat, what keeps us alive is the consistency. That boom, boom, boom. And so rhythm, I don't see where that's gonna, just be dispensed with in music and have it still be popular. It's been tried before. I mean, people like avant-garde and free jazz. I don't particularly like it. And I ask people, name one hit song from free jazz that appealed to the people. Mm-hmm. So there's stuff that appeals to people, there's stuff that don't. A lot of the outside jazz did not appeal to no mass audience. Yeah. And I defy anybody to name me one hit that came out of that genre, even though people will argue that it's artistic and so forth. But I'm talking about the reach to people now, because people complain about empty gigs, empty rooms, and constricted opportunity.
I think everybody like organized sound. Mm. Some people get into the spirit, they might smoke a blunt. And it's that they can hear that shit. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And whatever. That's cool. Mm-hmm. I like when I hear Ornette Coleman, he has an out thing, but it's organized.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
It's I can get that.
I can hear Ornette Coleman.
Yeah, because they be tight on them heads. The rhythm. That pulse, they be like right there, man.
But Albert Ayler, I'm sorry. When you getting into that, I'm like, I can't hear no Mother, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Sorry.
Yeah,
it has. I like controlled avant-garde within certain parameters. Yeah, it's digestible.
Man,
to me,
whatever. Everybody. See, some people associate that with freedom, being free.
Right.
And so they associate with the black struggle of that time, freedom with no rules.
But you know what Duke Ellington told Mingus when they did the Money Jungle album? Mm-hmm. Mingus said, hey, Duke, let's play some freeform stuff. He said, why go that far back, Charles?
Wow.
That's how we started. We started making noise on instruments. We didn't know what we were doing. And Lou Downs said, they were searching for something. They should have just searched for a good teacher. And their search would have been over. Because they could have learned the basics of playing the instrument.
Oh, wow. Well, hey, man, look, man, all men are not created equal.
Right.
Everybody. Some people just want to be on stage, and they don't want to go through all that formal stuff. They want to be on.
But if everybody starts doing the backbeat, now hear what you're talking about, that rim shot and that little funk. If everybody starts doing that, then it becomes a situation like you alluded to before. You're seeking validation by playing what everybody else is playing instead of being creative.
But me and you, we talk about this all the time. They might be playing the music of their time. Mm-hmm. See, we came up with hip hop. Yeah. We heard that, but see, we're the last generation. From that we got some of that old school. I mean, I got to see Hank Mobley.
Right.
Some of these young cats didn't get to see Hank. Yeah. I got to see Miles, Dizzy,
Hubbard.
Dizzy. We recorded Dizzy in the bathroom.
Yeah, we recorded Dizzy in the bathroom.
And so.
Then you asked him. I remember you was like, Dizzy, how do you get through changes? And he stopped. He looked at you. He put his finger. I could see it, even though it was almost 30 years ago. He said, sit at the piano and see how. He did his hand just like that. See how the changes are moving.
Yes.
And so this music is, and you wrote a whole series. That one interaction with spawned a whole series of books.
Yeah.
Which you
because
wrote.
at the time, I thought improvisation was just making, like these cats was making this stuff up in the moment. And I had to realize, no, they work stuff out.
Yeah, talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, they work stuff out, and it sounds like it was in the moment.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, in fact, I transcribed Train solo on Giant Step, and he plays some of the same figures in certain places. And so, and that's not the, improvisation is not just making stuff up how we were taught. It's putting things together in the moment that you already know and familiar with. But you got to be familiar with the changes. You got to be familiar with how to get, what can work through these changes. And then in the moment, it sounds improvised.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
And so it's not just this chaotic kind of free fall and just play what you hear.
Yeah, I think that perception has cheapened the, just the perception of the music.
Yeah,
that
man.
people think it's off the top of your head.
I heard Clifford Brown like playing Cherokee.
Oh Lord, yeah.
Without just it was just practice, and he was running through them chains. And I'm like, there's no way he ain't miss up.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And I'm like, man, there's no way he could just. This is just coming from the ether, out of the blue.
Wow.
He worked that stuff out.
I came to this conclusion. Okay, if you could play the changes by yourself with no accompaniment, then when you play with a rhythm section, they're supporting you. But if you can't do it without the rhythm section, they are carrying you.
Yeah.
And if they get the sense that they're carrying you, they will stop playing, and you will be lost.
There you go.
You see what I'm saying?
And what I'm learning, I'm working on a project now.
Yes.
I don't want to share, but
Yes, unmentionable project.
Well, it ain't unmentionable, but only few my associates and
Right.
friends and associates know what it is. But in working on this, I'm learning the beauty of the standard, the American Songbook.
Yes.
We got some wonderful, beautiful music, man. And that's in this thing called jazz. That when you really get inside, and then I also had to learn that all them changes in the fake book weren't right.
Right.
And I said I had to search and find the right. Okay, what and I had to listen to the album and figure out. Okay, here we go. He's going here, and so because they may put substitutions in there, whatever.
Right.
And so, but it's just some beautiful. We have the American Songbook, man, is wonderful, man.
It's funny that you said you showed me the other chord changes to 4.
Yeah.
And Trevor told me that Mogul was playing the other changes, the fake book, and Clifford Jordan at Bradley's when I said, man, let me talk to you playing the wrong, and showed him the right chord changes to 4.
Yeah, man. So I'm learning, and so I'm, I always say there are levels to stuff, and the deeper you go in, the deeper you can get and appreciate the beauty. The problem I have with this young, as a teacher, as an educator, people, they want to just be on the surface. And the reason why people like yourself and maybe myself, sometimes we find it hard to connect with people, even people in our family, is because we've decided to go deeper in it. Like you're well read. You've read books and been I'm talking about magazines for years. And so you've gone deeper. Whereas most people are on the surface. They're hearing it on the surface. The magic is down there in the depth of it.
Right.
And, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And so we got to get society to develop their aesthetic value, to go deeper. Get off the surface stuff.
Right.
Booty, like that.
Yes.
Because we all visual and throw your butt in the camera and all that surface stuff. But let's get into the depth. We got to raise our, let me say consciousness, but consciousness and
But that works for this system for people to be impulsive, to be pursuing their desire, because they have a whole industry, thanks to Edward Bernays and his manipulation of Freudian psychology. That whole advertising industry is based on, impulses, not thinking. Just go and do it. If it feels good, just buy that $1,000 bottle of wine and worry about not being able to pay your rent tomorrow.
I was listening to Earl Nightingale, man, last night. And the man, he has this deep radio voice, man, but spewing out all this wisdom. And man, it feeds me.
Right.
I go to sleep listening to this stuff, man. You know, Brian Tracy.
Right, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, this stuff goes in me, man.
Wow.
Napoleon Hill and all this stuff. And it feeds me. And because as humans, I would think that we would want to have the greatest experience, life experience that we can have. Like let's say, I'm still discovering who I am. There's more to us that we, you know, like.
But it just seems like after school, and you could relate to this, people, they say it's a commencement, so the beginning, but we took it as an ending. You get a degree, you get a job, you have a family, that's it. And we talk about freedom and freedom of choice. People's lives look pretty homogenized to me. Yeah. They had a job, they had some kids, they had a house, they may have left some twos and fews when they died, but where's the legacy? Well, who can you look back and say, like I look at my father was able to be an artist. He's the only one out of multiple generations between two families that just didn't work a job and die. And I'm saying, if we have all this freedom, show me it in the life choices and career choices.
Yeah.
I don't see it.
Some people choose for themselves their destiny, and some people follow the choices of other people. You know, I happen to be one of them guys going to choose to follow my own destiny. For good or bad. Sometimes I made mistakes. I fell in the ditch. But I made a choice nevertheless.
Right.
So we make choices, man. And you can learn from your choices. I believe as long as you got breath in your body, there's still time for you to create that legacy.
So let me ask you, here we are sitting in our mid-50s. I'm born in 67, you're born in 69. And we're still quoting Dr. King. We're still talking about musicians that died the year we were born. I'm like, so what? And we say racism was worse then. So why are we less accomplished and exposed now? With the internet and all this stuff, you know, when you look at the Hank Mobley, his body of literature, songs, the recording he was able to do, some of the authors, you know, Dr. Ben, Ivan Van Sant. These cats had a body of work even in spite of those limitations, or perceived limitations.
We talk about this too. They had a community. See, we think that we were segregated. They were segregated, which meant what? The great minds lived in the neighborhood.
Yes.
So even though you can go around the corner, like say, I was telling somebody, Train lived over here, Monk lived down the street, and boop. So you can go there and get fortified with this, you know, Paul Robeson might have lived here, Duke Ellington, you know, and you can go and talk to these cats because they was in the same community.
Can I illustrate your point?
Come on.
We worked this old man's grass on Alabama Avenue. No, Carolina Avenue. For those of Hempstead, no. West Marshall, Alabama, Carolina. So he gave us $10 a piece. This is like in 1978. We thought we were rich, man. And there was 10 of us.
Yeah, wow.
And so we raked this grass. So the next year, I see this old man up at the school. And he has a saxophone. And he wrote an arrangement of Grand Central for 10 saxophones.
Wow.
Old man in the 70s. Well, somebody wasn't playing one of the parts he wrote. See, you think he's old and you playing them cheap. He said, don't mess up my shit, man.
Wow.
Somebody ain't playing my you know, and he went off. It was Bud Johnson.
Wow.
Bud Johnson gave Ben Webster his first saxophone lessons.
Wow.
In Kansas City. Legendary artist. Toured with Quincy Jones in 1960.
So going back to what your point is, those cats, they had to write, there was a standard.
Ooh, please.
And so they set the...
Somebody was not playing the music.
Yeah.
Out of 10, one person, and he heard that one. You think he's old, he ain't hearing shit.
And that was in the community. So, you know, you knew where you stood. You knew, oh, I ain't getting on that bandstand. Because I ain't.
Right, oh, yeah.
So there was a standard.
Absolutely.
You know, and so in our community, man, I think after, I guess, integration or whatever, man, the community, people moved out and whatever. You know,
and then with jazz, we talk about it all the time. Now, as a musician, you expect to play some cutting-edge hip music when you hit that bandstand. But you read some of the literature and the books, the articles are corny, and they don't reflect. You got professors writing about jazz. They never even been in the Village Vanguard. They didn't even talk to the musicians. And we have a certain voice. The cats I've met and you've met, they have a certain voice, not only on their instrument, but just like this when you talk to them.
That's why I think that's where you need to fill that void. Munir Nasser. See?
Yeah.
That's why I say Munir needs a platform.
Right.
Throw some love this brother. Come on, y'all. They be having these festivals and stuff. Throw some love this brother with.
Wow.
Nah, man, seriously. And that's another thing, man. We have in our generation, people of substance that don't get visibility.
And I'm just telling you, I'm not bragging, but I'm 55. I don't know nobody else that has a self-published jazz book as a sole author.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Come on.
Publishers Weekly finalist, got a perfect score, and I'm just saying, so, I mean, if this is a crowded area, let me know. Maybe I'm in a big line.
Another thing we got to address, man, a lot of the so-called elders, leaders, they don't want to pass that baton.
Yeah, they don't.
Talk about it.
Yeah, they
Come on,
nah,
man.
you got to snatch it. I'm snatching it. I ain't waiting.
Exactly.
You right.
So, man, you know.
But Betty Carter, like you were saying, she was about not just her music, she was about the music. That's why she took young cats like yourself and said, y'all gonna learn this. And look at all those people you named, and they got careers, they got bands, they could bring people into the fold. A lot of these other elders, they're about their music. They keep the same bass player in the band for 30 years, which means young people can't get a chance to learn from this elder.
And not just music, man. We got young minds, but they're gonna skip over cats. And I found that in our generation. And I remember when I was around 38, I called myself I was gonna be a rapper.
Tony P.
Tony P. There you go. Because I had gone through a divorce prior to that. And I just got, you got frustrated, man. I'm like, man, I done followed all the rules, went to school, but the cats that got the pants sagging, hats on backwards, they getting the girls, they get the money, they get all the attention. So I said, man, fuck all I said, man, I'm gonna get into this hip hop thing. And I was serious. People was laughing at me. My boy said, you 38, you think you gonna be a hip hop?
Oh, shoot.
And I said, yeah. And man, I got a couple of jokes that my conscience wouldn't let me put it out.
Wow.
And I ain't really saying too many.
Right.
But it's just that thing that I was born, that was taught to me coming up, man, character, whatever that is. I couldn't put it out.
Now, that's a good point you made, and I make it all the time. It's like they made the bottom the top. Those people that are like the people our mothers told us and fathers told us not to be like, that's the people they promoted. That's the people
That's
they
the
gave
trick they played on it.
Yeah.
They told us to follow the rules and go to school and then they gave the rewards to the cats that was talking about selling drugs, the cat that was, pimping or whatever, gangsters. Right. I'm a gangster. And they got and ain't that something, man?
And I'm not gonna mention no names. A lot of these cats use drug money to finance, and we couldn't do that. You know what I'm saying? So their success is at somebody else's expense. They sold death and poison in the community to get the initial investment to record and be rappers. And that cheapens their success to me.
Yeah. Well, that's why I had to become, like I say, man, self-validating. I don't look at other people's success. I mean, I see it, but I want my success. I want what God has for me, not what He has for somebody else. I could appreciate what you're doing, and I always give love. We've always been able to give some love to those people that we respect and admire. But I had to focus on Antonio, what this God had for me. I know I ain't just down here just to be no spoke in the wheel.
Right.
So I had to focus on, well, let me follow my road. Let me find my thing. And sometimes in doing that, your road ain't gonna be the road where people roll out the red carpet and say, come on in. And your road may be, you gotta go through some detours and all that. But in the end, when you look back, you say, well done, my faithful servant.
And what it is, you become like a runaway slave that expects to come back to the plantation and for the master to serve you a meal.
Yeah.
It's like you're doing something that's off the beaten path. Yeah. And so you're going to take some bumps and bruises. You're not going to be embraced, for doing it,
Hey, man, not initially. But how many people who were not initially accepted? Malcolm wasn't initially accepted.
Wow.
Not even Muhammad Ali.
But like I tell people, we talked about, we mentioned this great musician earlier in the conversation. Somebody like Freddie Hubbard, he died in 2000. There's no book. This is a genius on a number of levels.
Again,
compositionally,
I say that's your job.
Playing wise.
Again, I say that's your job. That's they say I find a need and fulfill it.
Yeah, that's true.
You've been saying that for years.
But there's so many I mean, he's just one among many that deserve. I mean, Max Roach, his book is sitting half finished. Now they say, "Oh, your father was a sideman. He didn't." Well, Max Roach don't have a book out. It's sitting half finished in the Library of Congress for whatever reason. It's not out.
Yeah,
that's a travesty. And there's interviews on the internet with him talking about this book being released. He wants people to know his story. It's not out yet.
Yeah, man. Well, the lesson from that is, while you still got your abilities, cognitive and otherwise.
Yeah, that's true.
You better do what you're gonna do.
And I've seen people get close. I'm not gonna mention no name. They when they started considering writing their memoirs, that it was over for them. They died. And
you can't really think that your family gonna finish it for you or your loved ones.
Yeah.
You can't assume that.
But a lot of people labor under that assumption.
Your father was lucky to have a son that had the interest. And because you did a book on your father and you labored 15 years to do that.
You know, if you wasn't so right, I would agree with you.
Who you can do? You got that for somebody. But hey, man, listen. All I got to say, bro, do what you feel in your spirit needs to be done, and do it. That's it. Don't ask for permission. You may make some money from it. You may not.
But what I'm finding, alluding to what you were talking about integration, how we gave up our base, our economic base, and our businesses. You can produce a product, but then you have to sell it in a market, which is a network. And these people that lock down free markets, right? These people that spend millions of dollars to open a market don't just let you in there unless it's something for them like 90%. And
yeah,
you get 10.
I could go with that argument in your father's time. But with the internet and social media, we have much more of an advantage. I mean, to get our stuff out.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, and to make some noise than your dad did and their generation.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So ain't no excuse for us either.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, we just gotta, I think it goes, we gotta first of all believe in ourselves and the power of our ideas. And then you can't be scared. You gotta be willing to invest in yourself.
Right.
I spend money on my ideas. I invest in them. I don't know if they're gonna bring the return, but I do it because I'm compelled.
And usually investment we talk about is blue chip stocks or somebody else's, and that's actually somebody else's business and dream and
but most
vision.
people ain't gonna put money in your dream. If they say OPM, other people's money.
Right.
Yeah, most people ain't gonna say here's $100,000. Go ahead and here's $50,000 now. Go write that book.
Yeah.
You gonna have to find, and figure it out how to do it on your own. But it's worth it to me. If it's that compelling to you, it should be worth it.
Right.
That's.
But what do you say to people that say, "Well, I got responsibility, I got bills to pay, I don't have time to invest"?
I don't say nothing to them.
Nothing.
If they feel that way, they're not compelled enough.
Okay.
If you make excuses, that means you don't want it bad enough. Antonio Parker, when I get an idea, I move on it. I don't know how I'm gonna do it.
So you had children and family that didn't get in your.
No.
That didn't stop your production, your CDs.
It didn't. No.
Okay.
It might have slowed it down a little bit because I But nah, man. Nah, you gotta. I raised my kids. I helped raise with their mom. I taught kids. I get up. I just put They say the heights of great men reached and kept were not attained by sudden flight, but while their companions slept, they toiled upward through the night.
Wow.
I just was toiling upward through the night.
Yes.
And then getting up early.
Yes.
And doing what I had to do.
Wow.
And I still do that, man. But, because I knew coming up, man, people weren't gonna give me the shot. I knew coming up, man. I always came up, people trying to, like.
But I'm saying you played with Prince. You've been with the Smithsonian Jazz Works.
Yeah, I've got some. I've been blessed.
You're a working musician. You know what I'm saying? You always work. You know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
not like you're an unemployed musician. So you've had some breaks and some good career.
Oh yeah,
right?
Yeah.
When you say so.
Yeah, as a result of me pushing still believing in myself, practicing, developing a talent.
So what would you say to young people now that like you want to pursue a career in music and compose and so
you
forth.
gotta believe in yourself. First of all, if you want to play music, just do it. There's no, your motivation. I always go back to why are you doing it? Like again, this was fun for us coming up. Music was fun.
Right.
I love playing. It was more fun then than it probably is now.
Now, another issue, and this has always been between me and you, because I always was fascinated by your ability to sight read. I was more of like, when we were coming up, if we wanted to learn, we had to turn on the tape recorder, rewind it, I didn't see milestones on the music paper until years later.
I wish I would have started that way.
I had to learn, we had to learn a lot of stuff by ear.
Hey, man, to me,
but it seems like it creates an imbalance in your eye. Like the stronger your ear is, sometimes the worse. It's like and you have a teaching on that. Why don't you give us
one thing I learned as an educator that there are different type of learners. Visual learners, people learn through here, with all that. I started learning by reading. That's how I was taught. So I got to work harder on listening and playing by ear. It depends on how you start, how you got exposed to it.
Right.
I think you can learn both ways. You just got to put the time in.
Right.
You might be stronger in this. That means, remember I tell you how you practice?
Yeah.
You might say, okay, I need to an hour a day doing X, Y, and Z.
Right.
Working on my weakness.
Okay.
And over time, you get better at it.
Right.
Simple.
Wow.
And then some people are more right-brained than left-brained. It depends on how you are, how you wired.
Right.
Reading is easy to me because it's all knowing the rhythms, knowing the notes, and knowing your fingering.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I can look at a piece without my horn and pretty much know how it's supposed to sound. Because I can read the rhythms.
Because Monk, I was just reading D.G. Robin Kelly's book on Monk, and he said as a last resort, he would take the chart out. He made Coltrane and Johnny Gill all learn by ear. And if they had to absolutely positively see the music,
to me, I wish I would have started out that way. But sometimes, I interviewed Charles Covington. He told me he was playing for this. He was playing organ, but he didn't read at the time, and so they had a conductor and everybody. And so he had to hear it, and he had to tell him, "Look, he's an ear person." And so it depends, man. But he said he went and worked on it, and he'll never have that issue again.
Wow.
Again, you got to practice.
Man.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
It's just shoot, man, like anything else.
Right.
Certain things come easy. Certain things you got to work at. My strengths was determination, the willingness to put the grind in.
So how do you take constructive criticism and feedback? I mean, what's the importance of being able to take constructive criticism along your journey towards mastery?
That's funny. Being a person that experienced a lot of rejection in life, I can, if it's going to help, if it's helpful, I can pretty much know what it is. But if it's just some BS, fuck them.
And you can tell. How can you tell the difference, though?
Okay. How they present it, basically. How they present it. A lot of times I listen to anybody, and I say, okay, that makes sense. If it makes sense to me, I'll try it. That's what I say, man. I listen and take what makes sense and try to work that out.
Right.
But some people be ego tripping or whatever.
Yeah, because we in a DIY kind of environment. Everybody think they could do everything on their own.
Yeah. No, in fact, I don't believe that I live out of my ego. I think we all have an ego. Some people can't never be wrong.
Right.
Or can never admit that they're wrong. Or always got to be right. I don't think I'm that kind of person. Right. I can say, I'm sorry, man, I was wrong. I'm human like anybody else. So I've always been that kind of person, man, that just, okay, let me try again. I got a conscience. If I did something wrong to you, I'm gonna feel bad.
Right.
If I said something, I might feel bad. So I'm that kind of, I'm always right but then some people just don't understand you. They may make, a lot of people have always made assumptions about me. And usually they assume what you couldn't do.
Right.
Who you weren't.
Yeah.
You're not good enough. Wow. And so they didn't know me. They assumed because you looked like this, then they put you in this box, their box.
Right.
To them, I say, fuck them.
But does that work to your advantage? Because that gives you the element of surprise.
In a way.
When you knock it out the box.
In a way.
Then they got to say, whoa. I ain't know you could do that.
I think I've done that
okay.
Over the years.
So that has another kind of satisfaction when you're able to do that.
I don't even process it, man. I just I don't give all that people, I don't give people a lot of energy to I just do what I know what I'm after.
Right.
I remember.
Has music helped you with that kind of mentality? I mean,
I think not just music, but living and learning people. Like I remember I did this gig, and this old couple came up to me and said, "You were too loud."
Oh.
And I said, "Thank you."
Wow.
And they wanted me. I guess they thought I was going to respond I just said, "Thank you," and I smiled. And they looked at me befuddled.
Wow.
I disarmed them.
Man.
That's
interesting.
I remember when my first year teacher, teaching in DC public schools, the principal was going to let me go my first year teacher. And I kind of felt it anyway. So when she called me down, Mr. Parker, blah, 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 and I'm waiting for her to say, so yeah, we're going to have to X session. And I said, well, I want to just thank you for this opportunity. It's been a wonderful time, and thank you for allowing me to move. And I just turned it. I guess she was expecting it to be.
Yeah, that's something.
What? I lost the job, man. Shit.
Wow.
I don't give people that power, man.
Yeah, that's good.
Man. Let me tell you something, man.
That's a good philosophy.
Yeah, you only live once. You don't let people take your power. Somebody gonna tell you who you are and what you can do, what you can't do.
But how do you gauge, given that you said that, how do you gauge progress from generation to generation? It's supposed to be like a relay race, and we supposed to be.
See, you're a historian. I don't really be focusing on no generation. I'm focused on how I gain progress from this year to next year. That's how man, whatever, because I can't control. It's too much stuff I can't control. I used to be into the black, and we need to.
So what would happen? We need like you said. Okay, I wrote my father's book. What if I didn't do it? What happens to all that info? I mean, we always invent against the system.
With stuff that people they might get thrown out. And you come on, man.
Yeah. That's
people thought I don't. That's to say, if you have to value yourself enough to say, okay, let me document. Your dad did that. He documented things that made it much easier for you to be able to write the book.
Yes.
Because he knew his value. You have to have enough value for yourself to know that you are important, your ideas are important. No matter who tells you otherwise, nobody can tell me who I'm not or who I am. I know who I am.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And when you have accomplishment, that validates it. When I you mentioned the books I did. I did 17 books. And I remember we were talking on the phone.
Yeah, man. You kept calling me every day, man. What are you
doing?
You
were writing the book.
Yeah, and you were the only one that took interest in what I was doing on a daily basis. It wasn't like you called every 2 weeks. Like every day. What are you doing now? Well, what's that? And how long is it going to take? Then the next thing you said, man, I'm going to write my book. And you hung up the phone and you didn't stop until it was completed.
4 or 5 years later.
Yeah, I never forget that. From the time you hung up that phone, every day after that,
that's how
you worked on it.
And so once you learn how to succeed, how to accomplish. You just redo whatever it is.
But you always wondered, why didn't other musicians that have this knowledge, why aren't they writing books? Why are they just confining their efforts to playing when they could write books and earn different kinds of ways?
Me, I don't know what musician you talk, but they were famous, and you said they were like, you think somebody buy a book on my about me? You think somebody?
Oh, that was Benny Golson.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, that was Benny Golson. He's like, I got a book. I don't know who would want to read it. But I saved that article. I saved that.
Hey, man.
Yeah, it was Benny Golson. I was surprised. He sure did say that.
Wow.
He said, I don't know who would want to read it. Like, it wasn't nothing. Like, it's, this is a cat
Some
that wrote
people,
Whisper Night and Along Came Betty, Stablemates.
Well, there you go.
Traveled all over the world, accomplishments, awards. Why does he still have self-esteem on a level that would compel him to say that?
I don't know, man.
That took me aback.
This is where I say sometimes being rejected, not getting the red carpet treatment, forces you to have to. See, when somebody's giving you stuff, and they let you in the band, we want you in the band, and you get stuff easy. I'm not saying he got stuff easy, but if things come to you easy, it's like a pretty woman. She grows up, you're beautiful. She gets that all the time. Can I buy you a drink? And she gets all this, and she just rides on that. Then one day she gets
old.
You know what I mean? And she meet a cat like me, and I'm not. I mean, I can. You pretty, okay?
Right.
And then she might be, or I may not give her the attention that she used to get. That can bother her because she never built. She don't know who she's made of. Who are you? Beyond people telling you who you are. You beautiful. You this and that. See, I was the cat that people didn't validate me. I didn't get the validation.
Oprah said something like that. She said since she wasn't really beautiful and all that, she had to really
But I always
scratch
thought
and claw.
I'm beautiful. I don't know. Oprah
she was beautiful, but not by the standards of what was popular, at that time.
Well, you know what it is?
And so she couldn't rest on that. She had to really put a lot more effort in.
When I was coming up, light-skinned it was in.
Right.
All the light-skinned dudes got all the play. It was painful at the time, man. But I got a little bit.
Right.
But I had to learn how to love myself. I had to learn how to validate myself. And this stuff is deep in the black community. We don't talk about it.
Right.
You know that color thing, how that thing. Come on now.
That's true.
You know what that is.
Yeah, I know what that is.
And so I've experienced that, man, and me and Sharon Clark was talking about that. And it's gonna break you or make you.
But the only thing I have to say, in honesty, being a child of the 70s, black was hip then. We had Right On Magazine, we had Soul Train, we had Jackson 5s with afros on, we had James Brown. So I was a little bit more insulated from the impact of that because I come from the black is beautiful time.
Yeah,
when it was hard to really demonize being black in the 70s, because being black in the 70s was cool.
But how many of them leaders were light-skinned?
James Brown.
Okay, he's exception.
Curtis Mayfield.
Yeah, but I'm talking about black leaders.
That's true.
Muhammad, Malcolm X.
Yes.
King was on the laddish side. I mean,
but then those come from seeing those white Jesus pictures on everybody's wall.
All I'm saying is it's real.
Yeah.
Subconsciously, this stuff is subconscious.
Yeah,
it's not people ain't gonna. It's subconscious. I remember. I could see it. Because. I was and I had African features. I had these deep African feet, big nose, big lips, you know what I'm saying? Big cheekbones, Dookie Brown. And so I've been through a thing, man. I had to, and then I go to Howard, man, all these pretty women out there. And I'm like, and my roommate was Garfield Bright from Shy.
Yes.
Man, Garf with the pretty hair, pretty boy Garfield. That girl used to come. I mean, I'm like, God, he didn't have to work as hard as I did.
Right.
He had an air about himself that said that I don't know if it was. I respect him because he still was accomplished. He's got his doctorate, so he didn't just rely on it.
Right.
But like people like being around him because the girls was like You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I wanted that. I couldn't get it. So I had
So
to,
that actually ended up working to your advantage in a certain sense, as you look back
what I'm
on
saying
it.
is, you adjust. It's like being in a game, the game of life. You did. You adjust. And then a lot of the things that I wanted at that time, it was probably good that I didn't get it. God had another plan. That's why I say you can't look at other people and measure them against yourself, because you're on a unique tour on this thing called Earth. This is your unique thing. So you can't look at what God gave somebody else.
It's funny because we're conditioned to do that. When you get grades in school, what grade you get? We're raised to compare.
That's why you get.
Then you get to a certain point and somebody say, "Hey, you're not supposed to do that. Don't compare yourself."
We're in our 50s. That's the beautiful thing about living the Elite C50. You got the benefit of foresight and hindsight. You lived a little bit, and you can see what's what and what's what.
Yeah, that's true.
That stuff don't make you. You could be pretty. I know a lot of pretty girls that they don't got that same pull that they had back then, because of Mother Nature just.
Oh man, you look at them now and say, "What? You used to look like that?"
Exactly.
Yeah, that's something.
But I think I became an achiever. Excuse me, because of not getting the validation. I'll show them.
Right.
I'm gonna show them, and that and then it became, after you go through that, I'm gonna show them that and then it ain't even about them. It's because it ain't for them. It's like, oh, I know who I am. I'm this. You know what I'm saying? And then listen, man. I got mines in life.
But you refer to that low frequency, and I think jazz, like, if you notice, for those who believe in scripture and the Bible, the Quran, the prophets never left with the masses of the people. They never left with the masses. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There was only a few people, that followed them. So the masses went with the lower frequency all the time. And I think jazz is like that. It caters to the higher sensibilities and sensitivities of the human spirit. And that's why most laymen, they just can't seem to connect with it. It doesn't resonate with them.
Are we talking about in America or around the world? 'Cause they love it.
I'm talking about in particular in America.
Yeah. I think in America, number one, it's not exposed. Again, when we was coming up, they had jazz on the Grammys.
Yeah, they sure did.
You know what I'm saying?
It was in a commercial.
Yeah. It's not. It doesn't get the exposure, and I think that if we want to build the next jazz audience, especially getting Black Americans into the music, man, you got to get these kids to these festivals. Y'all got all these festivals, man, and I see a few Black young people in the festival. Because even if you're not a musician, see, one thing about jazz, it's a culture. And we need to sell it like hip-hop. Hip-hop is sold as a culture.
Right.
See, jazz ain't just the musician. Jazz is also the listener. Everybody can play a role in pushing jazz.
Right.
The writers, people, who's the cat they was complaining about that did the documentary, what's the cat name? Burns.
Ken Burns.
Ken Burns. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, a lot of people complained about that.
They complain, but I'm like, well.
22 years later. That was January 2001.
Right. Do your own documentary. That's what I'm saying. We act like we can't do something.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's my thing with Black folks. We so busy looking through the lenses of racism and white supremacy and all this. And I'm like, man, you got the opportunity. Like, it might be harder. So what?
Right.
Do it harder.
But I mean, to your point, some of the people, I gave them books. That some of them were involved with Ken Burns jazz and stuff like that.
Yeah, they don't want to write. They don't write. Where the books?
But they're gonna have to encourage that. Nobody's gonna write in a vacuum. Like, I just spent $13,000 to put that book out, man. Nobody got no spare, money like that. If they don't believe in it, that it's important.
Again, remember I said freedom ain't free.
Yeah, sure. Costs. Yeah, I know that.
You pay for what you want.
Yeah, that's true.
There's a certain man. I got some ideas for jazz. I ain't gonna share them right now and I may have to invest my own money, and I'm gonna do it not because I may not get it back, but because I want to do it.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
But that's another thing I encountered in my journey writing the book. The older people, that said we didn't live through the Black Power. We knew Martin Luther King. We walked with him. We marched with him. I knew Malcolm X. I went to his meetings. So then why are you asking me if I'm going to a publisher? Y'all fought for freedom, right? So why are you asking me if I'm going to go to a university publisher? You know what I'm saying?
Because
we fought for the right to do that on our own.
Because that's all they knew back then. You had to go through a publisher back then. They're not, a lot of the people back then not acclimated to create space as we got, or how stuff can work.
But Dr. Ben and them published their own book, J. Rogers. They had to because of the content in there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Nature Knows No Color Line, From Superman to Man, Sex and Race.
That's why at the end of the day, you're either going to do it or you're not. You can make all the excuses in the world.
That's true.
I don't make excuses for being black. I don't make no excuses. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. If I'm not going to do it, I'm not going to do it. And that's just, that's the end of it. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of work to be done. So find your little corner of it and do your little piece. I do my piece.
Right.
This person do their piece. And that begins to bring it into the fold.
Yes.
But if you sitting back waiting, because a lot of people complain. But if you sitting back waiting for somebody to do something, but that's what Malcolm was talking about.
Now, so given that, what are we waiting for coming from you in terms of what your vision for the future and what you're working on going into the future that you could discuss right now? I know you got some, other initiatives that you're not ready to discuss now.
Yeah, I'm working. Well, I've always been the kind of person I'm always working on. So I'm trying to finish up on a project that I've been working on for the last 6 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ooh.
I think it's going to be, I think it's going to be turn some heads.
Okay.
But I already got the next project in mind.
Right.
But that's all I could do. What you can do.
So you got music. We're going to be recording any new music.
Yeah, I'm always doing.
How many albums do you have out currently?
I would say I have, my first album was called The Exchange. That was inspired by my
trip to
tour to Africa. Yeah.
Yes.
Then I started working on an album, man. It was going to be called A Celebration in Jazz. I recorded it, and I had gone through
two CDs, right?
It was a 2 CD. Yeah, I had gone through a divorce. I never put it out. Wow. And when I got around to putting it out, my plan. I listened to it. I'm like, I put it out like,
Man, that sounds good, man.
SoundCloud.
Wow.
But then I did my third one was Stepping Out. I did a live CD at HR 57.
Right. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, man, we could talk about so many different stuff. And that was a double CD. That was 2. Yeah. That was very.
Did you want to mention something about HR 57, that institution?
Man, we gonna be here forever doing that, man. But HR was
briefly.
HR 57 was developed by Tony and Denise Poussaint, and it was inspired by the House Resolution HR 57.
Yes.
That
Conyers.
By the Congressman Conyers that viewed jazz as a national treasure. Okay, and Tony and Denise, Tony built this institution where we played, and I think you were running the sessions for years, and I was doing the same. And I think I'm the only cat that did a live recording there.
Wow.
Live at HR57. So that's
that immortalizes the institution.
Yeah, I saw Tony not too long ago. And then I did an album called Planetary. It's a funk. And one thing about my records, man, they go in different directions. That's like you said, I like all.
Right.
So I got Roy Hargrove on it.
Wow.
That's
one of Roy's probably one of his last.
And maybe his last.
One of his last studio recordings.
I got Roy on there.
Oh, you made history.
Russell Gunn.
Oh, Russell Gunn.
On it, man. Yeah, man.
Wow.
And the deep thing about that album is that when I was working on that album and my series of books, A Language of Jazz, A Repository of Melodic Ideas and Linear Constructions, at the same time, and they both finished around the same time. And so I didn't really get a chance to push the funk album because I was pushing these books.
Wow.
And so I think what I want to do though, I want to get the funk album done as a record.
Okay.
Like record. Like.
Oh, okay, about vinyl.
Wax,
okay,
vinyl.
Cool. Yeah, that is
I'm
bad.
gonna do that, and then I'm gonna probably get some CDs. I haven't even got it's digital right now.
Yeah.
I haven't even got it printed up, man. So I want to do that because that was special. That was the last recording that I put out.
Uh-huh.
You know, but I put out singles, a little here and there.
Yeah, it's a singles mark. Yeah.
I put out as a producer. I consider myself a producer. You know, when I got to hip hop, I was doing beats and you know and all that stuff, man. And so yeah.
So what about the whole landscape of the music business with streaming? And it's so hard to generate, you know, revenue from music, from written music, in the way it was generated before.
With you, man, I don't. They figured somebody making money in it.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, because they
because you remember they said Little Richard made pennies for. Yeah. Now it's a fraction of it's even worse than what they were getting in the 50s.
If I could do a gig, and I could sell 15 to 20 CDs at the gig, and I'll get it like that.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it goes back to what you said. You have to preserve your own legacy. Whatever you do in life, you're creating your own legacy. And that's what it's about for me at this point.
Right.
You know, money will come. You know, there's plenty of money out here. Money is called currency. You got to get into the current.
Right.
You know, and you have to attract money. I believe, and you know, we get into the metaphysics. I don't want to go there, but I believe that, like I always say, money is like a woman. You don't chase it, you attract it. A woman, if a woman saw something about you that she will come to you. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And you got to make yourself more attractive. Money is the same way.
Wow.
We got to get out of the worship of money, first of all.
Yes.
And get the spiritual money. There's a spiritual aspect of wealth and all that I think I'm on that ride and I've noticed because whenever I do something, I don't worry about how much it's gonna cost. I don't even think about that. I think with the project I'm working on for the last, I think I done spent over $30,000 over a period of years.
Man,
I don't know how much it's gonna cost, but it costs what it costs. But God has always brought the money when I need it, and the people. So that's why it's a spiritual thing. Whenever I do, you know, it's a connect. And I think as you get older and you really learn that connect with the divine, and you move in that way, you begin to not focus on what the world is doing. You focus on what's going on inside of your world.
Right.
So not the outer world, but the inner world.
Yes.
Yeah.
And with technology, isn't that becoming, because look at when you're on YouTube, you're watching something, you're into it, and a commercial just busts right. It's almost like they're fostering a lack of focus, you know? Or you're talking to somebody looking at the phone and looking at the computer. It's like this kind of, and how does this lend itself to even music, where you need to be disciplined, like you said, work on specific things? Do you do it with the TV on? Do you do it with your computer on? Is your phone sitting right there while you trying
Everybody's different. Some people can multitask. Some people can. Women have that ability. They could be. You think they ain't listening? They could be doing this.
Yeah, that's true.
And they could be. You know. Everybody's different. Like when I drive down in my car, I don't have music playing.
Right.
Because I find myself listening to my thoughts.
But my concern is if we don't manage this technology that we have, are we going to be? Is musical excellence and excellence in other areas going to be consigned to the past? We're going to be looking back, quoting Martin Luther King and talking about all the great musicians back there.
No, because
while
I'm
there are
here.
none here and going forward.
Y'all got me.
No, but that's
we got
true.
you.
Yeah, that's true.
We got, you know what I'm saying?
But I'm saying for the ones going forward, because we come from the old world. We got one foot in this world and one foot in the old.
They're going to find their way.
Okay.
See, everybody's going to have a question of the younger generation. Everybody question the younger generation. They're going to find their way. You know, it's just our time for us to give them a perspective.
Right.
So that they can take some from us. The lineage can be passed, boom, bam, bizzle, like that. I believe they're going to find their way. They may do it differently than us, but I believe they're going to find their way the way they see it, because they come up, you got to understand, they coming from a different world than us.
Yeah, they are, because with my children and with the children I've taught at University of Maryland, I was getting on their case like old school, and I had to sit back and say, oh, the sensitivity, the emotional sensitivity level is totally different from ours.
Yeah.
You know, and you got to deal with them people didn't come back to the class. I was hard on some of the people, and they never came back to class.
Yeah,
And I said, I didn't know, but I didn't know.
I'm more concerned, man, with as an educator teaching elementary kids that they are brilliant in certain ways. They're much more aware than we were at their age. I mean, so they're aware, but their value system is like, it concerns me.
Right.
You know, their level of, some of them can't sit still and focus their attention. Mm-hmm. And so that concerns me.
Right.
They're going to have to find their own way. My kids going to have to find, they different.
Yeah.
You think that, okay, I'm going to give my kids what I didn't have. That still ain't enough.
Right. And it's something.
Yeah, so everybody got to find their own way. We had to find our way.
Yeah, that's
Come on,
very
man.
true. Yeah, very much so.
You know, I saw you.
Yeah.
Shoot, man. All right, man. You got any more questions?
Yes.
Okay.
So we're coming to the conclusion. I'm
Okay.
just trying to check my notes to see. It seemed
Yeah,
like
we ain't gonna cover all that.
It seemed like we covered everything.
Yeah.
So is there any other final statements that you would like to make that maybe something I didn't cover that you would like to touch upon?
No, well, I think we covered some things, man. But I'm honored in a way to have you.
Yes, likewise.
We started
yeah,
this,
man. 35 years ago.
Yeah, and
I've seen your growth and development as you've seen mine.
And you've been like a big brother to me.
Likewise, yes.
Yeah, and just you were more advanced, and I remember the day.
But you're not a feel-good friend. I tell people they have feel-good friends.
Yeah.
They talk. I mean, me and this cat have argued. He's criticized me. We have an open way. He doesn't.
Yeah.
He's not. This is not like a yes man kind of relationship.
Yeah.
Where every time I say something to him, he says, "Yeah, you're right. That's right." No, it's like a challenge. You've challenged me to grow, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a good relationship does.
Yeah.
Friendship or otherwise,
Yeah.
it's supposed to grow you.
Yeah. And that's
I've definitely grown from being around you and in your
that's why
presence.
we here, man. It's like, wow. So that's the thing, man. Let's say that's what friends are for. No,
yes.
But that's the thing about life, man. Everything matters. I tell people, if I got any closing, everything matters, no matter how small. Some things may not, like, you may think is not important and may become important way down the line.
Yes.
And so what I do, I think is important for you to continue, and I know sometimes you want to get out of jazz.
Yes.
We talk, and I say, nah, man, this is what you know. I played on your strength. I wait on, you have a voice in this. And I just think that you definitely need a platform.
Well, I just wish there was more to, like, when my father and them was coming up, I saw a certain level of camaraderie, of unity. Now, in this present jazz world, like, nobody wants to help nobody. You can't get calls returned. It's not the same kind of environment.
Yeah.
That's why when you hear me express those kind of ideas, it's against the backdrop of this current environment.
Yeah.
Not the environment I, observed before.
Yeah. All I'm saying, though, is just to move in the direction of how you see it.
Yes.
Because it will have impact.
Yes.
You know, and I think that our generation, they try to call us the X generation, and in our generation, and maybe they did this in other generations too. So they give certain people in our generation got put on.
Right.
Only a few of y'all can get
that's
the
true.
goodies.
But they say with the internet now, we have the latitude that we could go around and go through the gatekeepers now.
And as I
but
said,
we have to do it. We just can't talk about the possibility.
And as I said, you may not be the cat now. You may not be relevant on the big stage now, but your work in time. See, that time element may begin to, young people, they say, oh, that upright bass. Oh, wow. And then, wow. And so we got to just keep that in mind.
Yes.
There's a time component to all of this. Some people don't get recognized until they die. We want to get ours while we're here.
Yeah, that's true. There's been too much of that. There's been far too much. And even like, I just hate to see repertory band sometime because I'm like, you're promoting dead jazz musicians. Play your own music and promote you. And I know from a commercial standpoint it's easy because that person has followers. Now you're just gonna, entertain their followers.
Yeah, I'm totally
But
not...
the drawback is, where's your music? You have better music than he had. Why don't you play yours?
Well, what I would say to you, focus on what you're doing.
Right.
Because you can't control... Everybody going to do what they do.
Right, yeah, that's true.
I have no control. If somebody want to do a repertory band, have at it.
Right.
But this is what Tony P doing. This is what Antonio Parker's doing. This is what Munir Nasser's doing.
Right.
And that's all you can do. That's all you have to do. Once man realized that he only can control so much, you ain't going to control everything. But you can have an impact.
Yes.
And, a lot of times I find elders, they can be so being critical instead of making their contribution and letting their work speak for itself.
Yeah, that's true too.
You did? And that's how we got.
Now, if someone wanted to contact you in the future, how could they do so?
I'm on Facebook. Mm-hmm. I'm on Twitter. I never be. I'm more so on Facebook. AntonioParker.com. I'm gonna re-up my website. I'm going to do the whole thing, and Tony P. Gray take this thing to the next level.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, trust me. I realized, Mr. Irby told me, he said, sometimes people hear with their eyes. So, a lot of times you could be so into the music, but people also the visual element. And so that's why I'm gonna redo the website. I'm gonna take it to another level, man. But you can find me. You can email me aparker469@aol.com. Yeah, I'm on AOL. I also have aparker469@gmail. So you can do that too. But I do the Conversations in Jazz.
Yes.
Yeah. And I want to thank you for hosting.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. And just keep your ears open to Antonio Parker, because I got some things that I'm working on that I can't wait to share. So
there it is, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Munir Nasser. This is a Conversation in Jazz with our guest, the great saxophonist, composer, arranger, entrepreneur, Mr. Antonio Parker.